And we have Wisai in here. My name is Erin Deely. I am chair of the pardon board for today. I am deputy legal counsel here in the governor's office. We have two other board members here today. Their names are Cindy O'Donnell. Cindy here, she was deputy secretary of the Department of Corrections under 3 prior governors, and she was an administrator for 2 attorneys general. And then Nadia Perez Reyes, she is, I have written out bios because otherwise I lose my train of thought, so bear with me. She's the assistant secretary for the Department of Children and Families, and she is a former public defender, as am I. So before this office, I was a public defender as well, along with Nadia. Really nice to see all of your faces. A couple things, these are just sort of housekeeping items. This board hearing is streaming. So what that means is it's on Wisai, and it's also being streamed on the Governor Pardon Board YouTube. That's something we have to do in order to comply with our state's open meetings laws. Additionally, a lot of you are on video now, and that's great. It's really lovely for us to be able to, have as close to an in-person interaction as we can by having this face-to-face conversation. If your case is not up, if your application is not up, feel free to turn off your video, keep your mic muted, and that's going to help us focus on the particular applicant that's in front of us at the time. If you don't feel comfortable switching between video on, video off because you don't trust your tech savviness, that's okay. Keep it on. It's not a problem, but just a preference. Introductory remarks. It's my understanding that folks got a list of suggested things to go over to introduce yourselves and your application. Try to keep those under 5 minutes. That's because we have your applications, we've reviewed all of your materials, and we want to make sure that we have time to ask questions if there are questions for you, and we want to make sure we get through all the applicants. We will get through all the applicants, but point being, don't spend too much time repeating all the stuff you told us in your application. This is more of an opportunity for us to really kind of get to know you as much as we can in a short time frame. And if I do cut you off, please don't take offense to it. It is purely a time management thing. It is not to be, it will not reflect poorly on you. It'll just be thank you, we're gonna go to some questions. And we understand that this is probably a very nerve-wracking circumstance and situation. And I ramble, hello, right now I'm rambling. So we appreciate that. Please don't take it personally if I cut you off. All right, so with that, we will get underway. Cindy and Nadia, did I miss anything in those introductions? Okay. Oh, you're on mute, Cindy.
Just one thing. Normally, the applicants are told once their hearing's done, they can leave. They don't have to stay for the whole session, just so they know that.
Yes, absolutely. And then I'll just tell all of you right now, what happens after we hear blocks of cases is we will move into closed session to discuss recommendations. Folks who receive a favorable recommendation from the board, then their applications go to the governor who makes the final decision. You will hear back about your particular application probably in about a month. So please be patient. We have staff here, Nick Rafe and Julie Dichtenberg, and they work really, really hard to keep this train rolling. And it's about a month for the hear back. We're gonna go in order of the agenda. So first today we have Jason Revell.
Morning. Thank you very much for your time this morning. I know it's been a little bit of an exercise, excuse me, getting all the paperwork and going through all of the hurdles. And I appreciate the board's time and all the folks that are working there at the governor's office to help me navigate that and to get all that stuff in place. So hopefully I've checked off all the boxes. I'm here kind of today to present my case for a pardon. I've submitted an awful lot of information regarding my case, dates back to 1996 when I was a young, impressionable young man who made some very poor decisions, along with some other cohorts. I've since then, turned course. I, spent a substantial amount of time for 4 years on probation, 1 year in county jail, and then completely served that and didn't have any hiccups or issues with that. I fulfilled my probation and all of my fines and fees and things of that, restitution and whatnot. I forget, so I apologize if I'm not as fluent as I maybe should be, but it's been since 1996. Anyway, I went through, I've got education, I got a job, I have a full-time professional career and have been gainfully employed for over 30 years. I currently am a business development manager at a design and engineering consultancy. I lead a team of about 10 people. I'm in the running to potentially take over and buy out my employer at some point in the future, but that's to be determined. I've kind of done everything that I can, I feel like, to improve myself and to prove myself hopefully to the state and to the public. And I'm certainly open to any questions that anyone has regarding, past indiscrepancies that, I did, and yes, current state of mind and, future plans. But I'm really just kind of looking for this to kind of check off and finalize this chapter of my life and move on. And eventually, when my kids are a little bit older, use this as maybe a teaching moment of, what not to do and things of that nature. So with that, I won't ramble on anymore, and I'll open it up to any questions you guys have.
Thanks. Cindy?
Good morning, Mr. Revell. So you were 18 when you committed these multiple burglaries, and you had quite a bit of restitution, about $2,600. How were you able to pay that off?
Sure. So while I was incarcerated, I still maintained a full-time job. I was fortunate enough to get Huber, which I think was probably a very fortunate thing for my situation, because I think had I been not had that, it could have probably turned the situation worse, as I probably would have focused on the negative side of things as opposed to trying to turn things around and improve myself. So I stayed employed during that time, and then I started to go to technical college as well. And then that led me into going to the University of Wisconsin Stout, there where I got my bachelor's degree.
Well, good for you. You've certainly done a lot of good things since these incidents. Thank you.
I feel like I have a lot to make up for, and I still try to think that way every day of my life. So, to be honest.
Nadia, any questions? I don't either. This is a good opportunity for me to tell applicants, if the board has minimal questions, if the board has no questions, that is in no way a reflection on your application. That happens a lot. It's because we reviewed your materials, and the questions are more designed to maybe get some clarification if it's needed. But if there are no questions, please do not go, finish your hearing and think that means anything other than you were very thorough. Okay? Okay.
And I'm always open to any follow-up questions. If anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm sure you have my contact information, and I'd welcome the inquiries.
We do. Thank you, Mr. Revell.
Thank you.
Unless you have anything else to add, we'll move on to the next applicant.
I don't. Thank you very much for your time, and best of luck to everyone, and have a good, fun, and safe holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Revell. Next up, we have Katherine Granberry. Ms. Granberry?
Oh, yes. Hi, how are you?
Introduce yourself. Thank you.
All right. Hi. Okay, my name is Kathy Granberry. I'm sure you know all of my information. I thank you for your time and letting me talk to you today and kind of explain, what happened when I was 18 years old and how I've changed since then. I was sentenced in 1999, like I said, when I was 18. I got sentenced to 3 counts of armed robbery, burglary, and forgery. My sentence went well. I did 3 years incarceration. I did leave prison early to do a boot camp program. I was one of the first 12 women to graduate from the CIP program, which is the Challenge Incarceration Program in New Richmond, Wisconsin. I learned how to become a better person and how to be kind of free from criminal thinking and change my thought pattern. Since my release, I've had only 2 jobs. I worked at a factory for 10 years. I moved to another city, so I got another job and I've been there about 6 years now. In my spare time, like I said, I have 4 kids. I like to spend time with them as much as I can. I am seeking a pardon today because since my incarceration over 20 years ago, I've had steady employment, helped out in my community, and become a productive member of society. I have not had any offenses since this time. I've just been trying to move on and close that chapter of my life and I guess be a better mother for my children and, see what they turn out to be. It seems like sometimes I'm still paying for my mistakes that happened years ago. Even though I'm trying to close that chapter, it seems like it still keeps popping up and causing, I won't say problems, but causing, problems. I guess, let's see. I always regretted that fateful decision. I guess, can you imagine being married and my spouse is sick and I can't care for him? I want to pursue a degree in nursing and I cannot do that because of my criminal record and the things that happened in the past. I cannot care for my husband the way I want to because of my past and the things I've done. So I thank you very much for your time. And in closing, I thank you for the opportunity seeing me and hopefully going forward, granting my life back and pursuing my future endeavors.
Thank you, Ms. Granberry. I'll turn to the board. Any questions from the board? Cindy?
Good morning, Ms. Granberry. I'd like to go back to the crimes that you committed. So as I understand it, you drove an accomplice to 3 different gas stations in 2 days.
Correct.
Is that okay? I have that right. So in your application, you say that you were in an abusive relationship and you were trying to fit in. You were 19 at the time. Can you just talk about what was going on in your life and what was your relationship with this person? What led you to participate in these?
So I got kicked out of my house when I was 17 years old. Basically thrown out and had no money, nowhere to go. I met a young man one night and he invited me to move in with him. I was in a very abusive relationship, very controlling. A friend of mine at the time asked me to drive her to the gas station. I did not think anything of it. I drove her there. She came out like nothing happened. I didn't think anything of it. The next day, she asked me, hey, can I have a ride? Drove her again. And I drove her to the gas station and was not aware of what was going on. And later found out, all of a sudden she pulled out a bag of money and I was like, oh my God. I said, well, where did that all come from? And come to find out she robbed the gas station. I did. When I was arrested, I did tell them everything that happened. Was very upfront with them and told them everything and what my involvement was regarding those robberies.
Okay, and then later you had you also had a conviction for forgery with some stolen checks. Is that?
Yep. Well, some of them were mine. I again had no money and I was very young and didn't know there were consequences to my actions. I was writing out checks and wasn't aware of, hey, somebody has to pay for this. And, I was going from writing them at, gas stations, getting food for myself, and wasn't aware of the consequences that were going to go along with those.
Okay, and then you also had a burglary while the owners were gone. You burglarized the home.
Correct.
Was that with the same people you were involved with at the gas stations, or
Yeah,
they were
correct.
the same group?
Correct.
Okay. In Brown County right now, you have an open case. Can you tell us what's going on with that?
Okay, so I got my COVID shot.
You don't have to give us the details. Just tell me if it's still open.
It is still open.
Okay. Erin, I don't know if there's anything else you want to follow on that.
No, Ms. Granberry, because that's a pending matter, I don't want you to say anything that could, that relates to the facts of that case that could possibly be used against you in that case. We more just need to confirm that that in fact is you and that you have that pending matter. It looks like you have a final pretrial in a couple weeks.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Granberry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nadia, do you have any questions? Thank you. Unless you have anything else to add, Ms. Granberry, we will go to the next person on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good day.
You too, thank you.
All right.
How do I get-
Next up is Mr. Jack.
This is Stephen Jack.
Yes, Mr. Jack. Hi.
Hi. My
Okay,
device.
you
I'm
are
not-
next up on the agenda. We can see you and we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I'm Stephen Jack, and I'm here as Pro Advisory Board to see if we can get this together where I can get my life back. I haven't been in trouble in 30 years. I work every day. I work 2 jobs. I'm just trying to get a better job so I can take care of my family. I'm getting older, and I'm just trying to do the right thing. And I've been doing the right thing for years and years. That's basically, I don't know how this goes, but that's basically what's going on.
Great, thank you. No, that's perfect.
Thank you.
Does the board have any questions? Okay. Oh, I have one question. I can start instead of you always having to kick it off, Cindy. I noticed you had a lot of letters from folks that you included in your application, and those are really, really nice when we see those. They were very specific. They were more specific than other letters of reference I've seen in that they all say, I think Mr. Jack should be able to possess a firearm. So I'm just sort of curious, were your references aware of your offense and what they were recommending you for, or did they think this was just a firearm eligibility matter?
No, I'm going to try to pursue a career in police work. And I couldn't do that because I had the felony. So I was trying to get everything worked out where I could be actually a police officer.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Jack. So when you were 29, you had your first 2 convictions, operating a motor vehicle without the owner's consent, and then concealing stolen property where you took parts from the vehicle.
Yeah.
And you were put on probation and then sentenced to prison. But then you continued to engage in criminal conduct. You were 33 and you had 2 more counts of concealing stolen property in 1993. And then when you're 38 years old, you didn't pay child support for more than a year, from the time that your child was 13 months to 3 years old. So, as a board, we don't often see people that continue to engage in criminal conduct over, a decade. So can you talk about that?
Well, I haven't been in trouble in 30 years. I've been working 2 jobs. My child support is updated. I actually owe $1,375, which will be paid off with my tax money this year. Everything, I haven't had no trouble, no police contact. I've been a model citizen. I'm just trying to finish the rest of my life working and trying to teach people not to do the things that I've done. Because I've done some things that wasn't good. Like I received stolen merchandise, I rode a stolen car. Yes. I haven't been involved with anybody or anything of that nature since. I learned my lesson.
So I'll concede with you, it's been 23 years, not 30, since you've engaged in criminal conduct. 23 years.
Okay.
But it's been a long time. Let's just agree it's been a long time.
Okay. Sorry,
No, it's okay. Time is, different. As we get older, we measure it differently, right? But I want to go back to what Ms. Steely asked you. It seems like your focus on getting a pardon is so that you can obtain and carry a weapon. So what would a pardon mean to you?
Pardon would mean to me that I could go into law enforcement and do the right thing and try to teach others to do the right thing. This is my main concern. It's been a long road. It really has. And when I've been able to do the things that normal people do, it's been rough, but I survived. I worked 2 jobs to do what I have to do to prove myself. My father passed away and he told me, he said, son, get yourself together. And that's what I've been doing. And I'm doing the best I can. I'm going every avenue I can to do the right thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I can take it.
And what area of law enforcement are you interested in?
Well, I was looking at the sheriff department. I've been talking to them, and a private police agency, I've been talking to them also. They told me to talk to them after the meeting and see the outcome. They say I'm a perfect guy for what they want to do.
Okay.
I've been on the other side. I want to be on the right side.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate everything that you guys are doing for me.
You mentioned the child support and that you were just about to pay off the last of something, $1,300. What was that? What are you referring to?
That would be the rears on the child support. It started off as $20,000. They were taking it out my check. And then they took my last income tax check and they said I owed $1,375. And they told me that they were going to take this check and the child support be done.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you expect that to be wrapped up in the next month or so?
Oh, that was real soon. Soon as my tax, I filed my taxes and everything. Soon as they take it out my taxes, it'll be gone.
Okay. And you said that you've been working 2 jobs for a while. It looks like they're the same jobs. So you're still with the recyclers and then automotive.
The same job I've been working. I drive trucks. Yes, I do. I've been working the job and I work as a mechanic. The same job all that time. Jump around. I get in there, stick in there, and I do what I got to do.
Thank you very much, sir. Any other questions from the board? Yes, Nadia?
Hi, Mr. Jack. Could you talk a little bit about, you made a reference to that you've dedicated the past 20 years to teaching people to do the right thing, and like what you think one of the biggest takeaways is from your experience that you want to relay to other folks to not repeat some of the same things that you've done.
I didn't. This device is making some kind of adjustment there, but I really couldn't hear that what you were saying. But I don't want anybody to have to go through the things that I went through. If I can tell somebody, talk to somebody and tell them what not to do, I hope it would help. It's been a long road. Is it working?
I heard you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Jack, unless you have anything to add, we'll move on to the next person on the agenda.
So that'll be it. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you guys. I'm sorry I'm not familiar with this whole system, but I'm trying to.
You did great. You answered all our questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you and have a great.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, you could go ahead and introduce yourself. Mr. Johnson, your audio isn't working. It's not a problem. Let's turn it off and on again. And if we can't get it to work, we'll just have someone call you while you stay on video. Nope, your microphone's not working. So what we're gonna do, stay on video, just stay on video. Whatever number you gave, let me double check. I will have someone on staff call you. Give me a thumbs up if this works. The 920-857-7790. Okay, someone will call you. We will go on to Ted Dudek if he's here, and then you will be up after Mr. Dudek. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Okay, Mr. Dudek, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Ted Dudek. Here for a pardon. My charges were armed robbery and intimidating a witness. The details are in the application, so I'm sure any questions I'll be happy to answer. My sentence was 1 year of work release and 4 years of probation with an 8-year withheld sentence. I did the year, got out, transferred my probation to Illinois, where I was soon in trouble again for possessing drugs, and my probation was revoked. And I was sent to prison in Wisconsin, where I served 3 years and 4 months in addition to the year. During my time there, I earned my HSED, completed AODA, kept to myself, stayed out of trouble. Since I got out, I stayed out of trouble, kept myself busy. I worked as a machinist from 2005 until 2016, until my fiance passed away and I was left as a sole caretaker for our autistic son. Now I work in a medical marijuana grow facility that I own with my brother in Michigan. We also have a license applied for in Illinois to be a craft grower there. And we also have our eyes set on other states, especially neighboring states, possibly. If anything happens in Wisconsin ever, that would be great. Why I feel like I deserve a pardon, I'm deeply ashamed of my behaviors and these crimes. I'm very remorseful. I committed this crime 10 days after my 17th birthday, when I was engaged in a pattern of basically youthful delinquency. I've never engaged in any of those behaviors since getting out of prison. I cut contact with all negative people and influences, including friends and family. I also want to pardon because I stated earlier that I'm the sole caretaker for my now 7-year-old autistic son, and it's my responsibility to provide him with adequate housing and preferably in an area with good autism services nearby. These felonies usually result in me being denied an apartment. It's also affected interest rates on loans. It's certainly impacted negatively my employment opportunities and income, which is one reason I decided to become self-employed, but the convictions still impact me there. For example, in Michigan, I'm a 9.9% owner of our company, Craft Hydroponic. The reason being is that owners with 10% or more stake in the company must do a background check with the state. So that's why I own 9.9% and not more of this company that I helped build from the ground up. As we move into other states, they all have their own sets of rules about licensing people with felony convictions. Sometimes it's the municipality you want to operate in that will ban giving licenses to felons. Other times it's the state. Having these felons pardoned will give me the ability to operate anywhere a business venture presents itself without licensing being blocked by these convictions that I picked up when I was 17 years old. There's other issues that haven't quite affected me yet, but like I'm the representative payee for my son's disability, and I believe technically I'm not allowed to be because of the felony, even though I am. I'm not 100% sure of that, but there's other things like being a trustee later on when he may inherit some money and things like that, where these felonies can impact some of those things. And with that, I'll close and thank all of you for your time this morning and take any questions.
I have a question. So you mentioned in your application that you have undergone AOD substance abuse programming, and I got the impression from your application that some of these offenses, which happened when you were much younger, might have involved some substance use. I mean, separate from marijuana, which is very legal where you live, were there other substance abuse issues? And if so, how did you manage that and still work in the industry you work in? Can you sort of speak to that balance?
Yeah, well, what it was a cocaine use, which I never was like fully into, but I was just doing it occasionally, and I happened to get caught with it. And then when I got into the AODA, it just helped me realize the patterns of thinking and situations I put myself in that led to those, to that drug use. And since I've been out, I just don't engage in any of that. I just, stick with my family. I don't go out. I don't drink. I don't do anything that may lead me to to that. And with the medical marijuana, it's really not a gateway drug. It's more like an exit, I guess, if you're going to even call it a drug. Like that really helps people stay off of other things. And I guess you could say medical marijuana in that way has somewhat helped keep me on a straight path.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Cindy, Nadia, any questions?
I do. So, Mr. Dudek, the armed robbery is a very serious offense. And then layered on that is the intimidation of the witness, which, our whole criminal justice system is built on, lawful citizens being able to unimpeded come forward and participate in juries and be witnesses to things. And what was your thought process at the time, and how do you look back on that forcing someone to sign a statement saying that the information they gave wasn't truthful? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it really is. Everything you said is exactly right. People should not feel afraid to come forward with information. And in that situation, it was a guy who was, at the time, we were friends and everything. And I didn't necessarily say, sign this. I just said, hey, we heard that you said that, and can you go to the police and straighten this out for us? And that was about the extent of it. And looking back, I realized, well, yes, that is intimidating a witness, even though I didn't directly, in my mind, feel like, hey, I'm going to do something to you if you don't, but that's just what my thinking was, and it was completely wrong. I was thinking it was not anything like that, but now I realize, yes, it definitely was.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Nadia, do you have any questions?
No, you asked them.
I assume it's someone's birthday in your house, so happy birthday.
Yeah, my son, thank you.
Happy birthday to your son. Unless you have anything to add, we will move on to the next person. We will actually circle back to Mr. Johnson. Anything to add, Mr. Dudek?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a great Memorial Day weekend.
You too, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, let's see how this audio works. Nick, do you have him?
Good morning. Okay, so, well, my name is Eric Johnson.
Oh, we have a cycle, so
Is my audio working now?
there we go. That's much better.
Okay, I'm gonna turn, there we go.
Don't change whatever's happening. Whatever's happening, it's working. Don't change it.
My phone was connected via Bluetooth and didn't realize it. So my name is Eric Johnson and I'm 47 years old. My parents divorced when I was 5, with my mother raising both me and my sister alone, doing the best that she could to care for us. I had no real father figure growing up. So from the beginning, I was already at a disadvantage. I eventually became the troubled, homeless, and angry 18-year-old that would enter the criminal justice system in 1992. I was charged with 2 counts of burglary, where my brother-in-law and I entered storage sheds to take items to sell. We both were convicted and sentenced to 4 months jail, 2 years probation, restitution, community service. I served my sentence without issue and have not had any police interactions since that time. I'll briefly touch on what I've done with my life since the sentencing. I've been married for 22 years, together with Sarah for 30. I have 2 grown boys, aged 23 and 30, where the youngest had just graduated from UW-Platteville. And as we speak, we're in Tennessee helping him move with his girlfriend for his first job. Worked to get my HSED, and at age 30 went to NABTC to pursue an associate's degree in electromechanical technology, where I worked as a technician at a manufacturing plant for 11 years. 6 years ago, I found the Lord and was baptized into the Christian faith. Involved in 2 local churches, volunteering and giving towards a different number of projects and ministries. My interests include cycling, gardening, being outdoors, learning about God, and just helping people. 2019, my wife and I went to Zambia, Africa, to support Faith Children's Village, an orphanage in a rural part of the country. We proceeded to support this ministry over the last 3 years. We've signed up with the church again to travel there this August. Along with this trip and Sarah being diagnosed and treated for colon cancer in the summer of 2020, we felt our life path change. A few things have happened since my application. A pardon was submitted. My wife and I are empty nesters, along with our Chaga lab. We sold our house last year, along with 90% of our possessions, to buy a truck and RV and to just travel. We joined an RV ministry group to support numerous different projects across the country, where I can then use my skills that I've learned in my trade to help people and organizations. Another parallel to this is to become an RV technician and start a business where I can also help people we encounter along the way. We started traveling and left the Green Bay area last November, but was called back to the area a month later. And when my mother was diagnosed with brain cancer, our focus right now is to provide care for her, and with her days uncertain at this point. Some of the reasons as to why I'm pursuing a pardon include international church travel missions are a huge interest of ours. Feel that a pardon will make this less complicated in certain countries. Fear of denial of entrance is considerable and always in the back of both of our heads. The shame that I felt over the years where I could not participate in hunting activities with my sons was very real. I'd like to pursue this activity with my son in the future. And while I have been gainfully employed over the years, applications still ask about felonies. And I felt at this point could hold me back with future opportunities. Lastly, this moment in time where I made a very poor choice has followed me for 30 years. I've done everything to settle that debt and more. I reflect back and see that young man without hope and full of sadness. Little did he realize the amazing life that was waiting for him with a wonderful wife, family, and an amazing God. And just thank you, Lord. And just thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Does the board have any questions? Cindy?
I have two questions, Mr. Johnson. One, is your oldest son still in Malaysia?
No, he came back last October. He's employed in Austin, Texas, and we saw him for a good month when he came back. It was sad that we were never able to get overseas through COVID, but you know, at some point we'll probably all go back as a family.
Well, he's a little closer to visit now. This is a long time ago, but you originally, when you were sentenced to probation, you were ordered to do 100 hours of community service. Do you remember where you did it?
I believe I did the majority of mine at the reforestation camp. It was the new zoo, the community zoo in Green Bay. I just did like you know, maintenance work and such.
Do you think that laid the seeds for some of your later work, or?
No, I mean, I knew I didn't want to do this anymore. I knew that I'd made a mistake, and that I was better than that. You know, my wife has been very supportive over the years, and you know, she's been a rock, you know, for me. You know, we weren't married back then. We were, you know, having babies back then, and you know, I think I feel like we beat the odds. You know, we were very young with children.
Yeah. Thank
But
you.
We're enjoying the seeds right now.
All right, well, good for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if no one has any other questions, we'll move on to the next person on the agenda. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
All right, Jason Nelson.
Hello, I'm under Renee.
Got it. Thank you.
I'm not a computer savvy person. I've never done this before, so.
Not a problem. You got on great. So go ahead, introduce yourself.
I'm Jason. As you've all read, from 94 to 96 were not a good time for me. I was young, 16, 17, just about turned 18. I really didn't care about much back then. I just did what I wanted, when I wanted, and how I wanted. I did a lot of burglaries. I even stole my sister's car, smashed her car up. And as you can read in the thing, she wrote a letter, you know, we worked through it, got over it. I helped her with her boys when she got divorced. And I have a lot of friends that are higher up people, let's say cops, all that. And I have always accepted responsibility for what I've done. I know what I did was wrong. I knew the consequences of what I did. I knew that this would be really a life sentence, but now I'm here trying to get that taken away, you know? I've always been, okay, I'll back up a little bit. So me and my wife got together, and in 2000, we got married. In 2001, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I did chemo, I did radiation. I was sick for about a year. Got over that. My wife was 8 months pregnant with our first daughter when she was pregnant when I got diagnosed. So we had our daughter, and we decided after that, I got off paper, did all my paper. I decided that we need to move away from Rhinelander. That's where we lived, to get away from everybody. If we stayed there and hung with the same people, did the same stuff day after day after day, life would never change. So we moved to Green Bay, left that whole life behind us. Now, life is totally different. I don't talk to any of those people no more, none of them. Obviously, if you bump into them in a grocery store when you're up there on vacation or whatever, you're like, hi, how's it going? Then you move on. When I was doing my crimes, I really didn't think, you know, of the people that I was doing the crimes against. I just thought, hey, let's just keep doing this. And if you notice in my report, it would be 20 crimes over 4 days or whatever, you know. And I did that twice. I went to prison, got out, still didn't care because they fast tracked me. I was only in first time like 90 days. Then they let me out on the ankle bracelet. And then did them again, went back. And then I'm like, you know what? No more. I don't like this. This is not good, you know? So I've had steady work. And one of the reasons I wanted the pardon was to become a supervisor at Neenah Foundry. I worked at Neenah Foundry. But since we have written for the pardon, I've actually opened a tree company that is going crazy, wild, crazy. I got 8 employees. It's sun up to sundown every day. Everybody wants trees down. And I don't want this on my I don't want people to be able to, because right now, if you go on my tree company online, Tree Be Gone, you Google it, it's 5-star rated. I aim to please. I want my customers to be happy. We do not leave the job until they're happy. I do not take payment until they're happy. There's some tree companies that will take partial down payment, you know, before they do it. Absolutely not. You do not pay me until the job is done to your satisfaction. I'm not taking no money up front. I'm not that guy. I don't want them to be able to Google me and find felonies. Yes, they're 25, 28 years. However, they're so long ago, I can't even remember how long ago they were, you know. I break out a calculator. But and we want to be able to travel. I want to go to Canada fishing so bad. But with felony, that's not an option. You know, like Niagara Falls, we want to go to other countries. And can you go to other countries? Yes, but you always run the risk of getting there and them shipping you back, not accepting you. And we just don't want that. I've told my kids growing up, don't dwell on the past, work on the future. If you dwell on the past, it'll eat you alive. This is still my past, part of my past. I want to close. I feel that I have done my time, for lack of a better word, and I'm just ready to move on, to have it gone. We are, as it says in the paperwork, we're huge hunters. We bow hunt. Once September comes, we spend any and every hour we can in the woods, bow hunting. My wife and my daughters do gun hunt. The guns stay at her parents' house, which is a huge inconvenience because they have to, instead of coming back to the cabin, they have to go to her parents' house to get rid of the guns before they come back, you know. They always wanted to duck hunt and goose hunt. They can't carry a boat. They can't carry a boat way out into the woods, you know. It's just not practical. And then carry all the decoys and all that stuff. Does the gun thing really affect me? Absolutely not. It doesn't. I can do anything I need to do with a crossbow, but it's just a perk, getting my rights back, you know? So yeah, that's me. That's who I am. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. One quick question, and this isn't all that unusual. Back when you served your sentences, people would get discharged and DOC would sort of send to civil judgment unpaid restitution. So it looks like that happened in your case, a pretty significant amount, like 2,800 or so to different individuals. Do you want to speak to that? What was your understanding of the restitution situation then? And if you have unpaid restitution, are you in a position to pay that?
When I was diagnosed with the cancer and they let me off paper, that was all waived as far as I was aware. Otherwise, I would have paid that already. My paperwork said all restitution was waived. That's why, otherwise it would have been paid a long time ago. And if it's still out there, I have zero problems paying it. But like I said, the paperwork we got said it was waived. All restitution was waived.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Any questions, Cindy or Nadia?
Erin, could you just, one of the things that Mr. Nelson put in is that he wants to be able to vote. Can you just speak to that?
I do have a note to address that. So, Mr.
Thank you.
Nelson, in Wisconsin, you're assuming you're not currently on some sort of felony supervision we don't know of. You can vote.
Oh, yeah. I've heard, I didn't try. I heard it's hoops you have to jump through when you're a felon to vote.
No, that shouldn't be the case. And if that is something that's happening to you, I would encourage you to reach out to the Elections Commission or your clerk, your local clerk, to get help with that, because you are, the restriction for felons to vote, and this is for everyone, is only while you're serving the sentence for the felony. And once you're discharged, that barrier to voting gets, is gone as well. So I encourage you to vote.
Okay. And sure, yeah, I will try it, definitely.
Yes.
I just
yes.
always
And
thought that it would be hoops that I have to jump through.
It
know.
shouldn't be, and I hope that your local clerk, and I believe they would be more than willing to help you with the process, your local election officials. They're usually wonderful people who can be very helpful in this regard.
I do have one daughter left in school. All of our kids are grown and out of school already. So at 48, we will be kid-free, hopefully, and be able to travel. We started young. We have beat the odds of marriage with, I know people that have been married 3-4 times already. And no, marriage is a lifetime commitment, you know. My daughter has a field trip at the end of the year, next year, her junior year, that I would like to go on, that I haven't been able to go on one single field trip ever with my kids because of my felonies. And I would like to at least make one. And it kind of made my other daughter mad because there was one she wanted me to go on. I was able to coach my kids through softball. All their years of softball, I was able to help coach them. So that was good. Yeah, other than that, I feel that I have done my sentence.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. I hope you have a really great Memorial Day weekend. It was nice talking to you.
I hope you guys do too, and I really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person up is Mr. Brunso.
Hi.
Hello,
Peter Brunso.
Go ahead.
Hello. Sure. I spent from is like as put in my what I wrote up essentially, but what I put in there is just my life, is how it unfolded. So from 11 to 17, pretty much every boys' home and shelter care in my area I visited, and you know, those are the things I frequented, and my life made sense to me to do the things I was doing. So I committed a lot of crimes, and I did a lot of things that I really didn't understand what I was doing. Besides, can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I hit a wall, and it wasn't to do with sentencing as much as just the life that I was living. I had this concept of maybe I could live different. And it came about in while I was getting waived over to adult court. So I had 7 felonies and 16 misdemeanors that I was getting waived over to adult court for. And they shackled me up and I've been shackled many times before that. And they shackled me up here and they walked me over, and everything started to become very surreal. And something started to happen to me in the sense of just that feeling of like you're kind of in a movie and looking back over your life. And I ended up sitting in the hole for around 90 days. And that was so because I was 17 and couldn't be with the normal population in the jail. And there's so many people that tried to help me through the years. And obviously I was troubled in many ways. And those like people flooded into my head at that moment. And it's funny because the guys who are in prison or in jail at that time in my life were like my heroes. Those are the people I looked up to. And they're, to talk to people when you're in jail or in the hole, you have to stick your face on the floor in the cement and yell back and forth. And that's all day long. That's what they were doing. And I started to see that they were actually the ones in the more fear and living in fear in life. And I could go on for a while about all this, but I'll just move past that into just that was the light that flicked on in my head and in my person. So bright that, sorry about that. Can you hear me still? Yeah, okay. That I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I knew I was addicted to drugs and alcohol. I knew that maybe I could live like those other people that just woke up and went and did life. And I just had these huge epiphanies at that young age. And I said, I'm going to go try to figure that out. So that's pretty much what I told the judge. And I had she showed me my two files of like my youth that had been through the courts, had two huge stacks of it. And she's like, well, looks like you probably said this before, but I'm going to give you a chance. And she did. She gave me 2 years a sentence with 10 years stayed. There was fines and other things. But anyway, either way, I did all the things I was supposed to. It wasn't the easiest to do any of that, to get soap, to get clean, to keep moving, to do it. But here, that was in 1993 when I got that, or 94 area. And now I'm 46, I think. And I use my history of life to serve our community at large. And that's the life I live. And through that experience of trying to help people and learning and doing that, now I run a few organizations within our state, and I help a lot of people from my experience. And it just clicked. I don't remember what it was 15 or 12 years ago where that feeling of being whole and consistently there, like said, I just saw it, that if I'm available for the person in front of me or people in front of me and build that process so that we can have more people available for more people, it takes away something from the inside as far as it makes me feel more whole. And when I saw that and how to maybe help people a little faster, and I could talk about all this stuff forever. So I'll just move on to, it's what I love what I do. And I'm blessed and so grateful to be able to do it. I don't feel like I deserve a pardon by any means. I think that this is the rest of my life. I did things that were pretty atrocious. And when you impact somebody's life in those ways, they may never get over it. But I'd say everyone in my life just says, you got to go for the pardon. And I think that it would help me. I am an entity caregiver in the state of Wisconsin for the different things that we do. And I have to re-up and submit all of that every 2 years and show that I'm still doing what I'm supposed to do. And I have not been in trouble ever since that time. But I think that the rest of my life, no matter if you guys give me the pardon or not, is in service of my history and my past. And that's just part of life, I think, when you go through these things. And if I did have the pardon, it would just be more of being able to show others that, yes, you can move past and through and use that as another tool. So I think that's all I got right now.
Great. Thank you so much for that.
Sure.
I do not have any questions. You had a very thorough application. Anybody else on the board?
I just have a comment. I was reading your file this week, Mr. Brunso, and you hit on some of the numbers. The numbers are staggering, right? 7 felonies, 16 misdemeanors. You were expelled 9 times. I mean, it's just, but we're all more than a number, right? And you certainly are. And, just kudos to your resiliency.
Yeah, I found out I do have that. Thank you.
Okay, with that, thank you for telling your story today, Mr. Brunso. You have a great weekend.
Thanks, you guys too.
Okay, please apologies. My apologies if I mispronounce. Mr. Wallsted?
Correct.
All right.
Nice. Thank you. Not many people get that. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm John Wallsted. I was charged with 2 counts, burglary, building dwelling. I also had several other counts read in. I'll start out at a young age. I actually had a great bringing up. My family, both my parents are still together to this day. You never know what you have until you get older. And my parents have always been with me. And I never understood that. But when I was younger, I was 17, 16-ish, junior in high school. I dropped out of high school. My dad was a college professor at the time. He was not very proud of me. I went on later, got my GED. I dropped out of high school because I hung out with the wrong crowd. Madison, Wisconsin, East High School. I hung out with the pot smokers. So we would just skip class and I ended up dropping out. My dad wasn't proud of me. Got my GED and then turned about 18 or 19. I stole a couple DVDs from my dad at the house, kicked me out of the house. I was dating a girl in McFarland at the time, and I was a single father. Daughter was 1 or 2 at the time. I was working at WPS part-time. Still having trouble making ends meet. So I met up with a guy that lived in McFarland that did lawn care. So I helped him out part-time. Well, that turned into other business. And then I finally caught on and I left them and they got in trouble. But I completely stand for what I did, and my actions are, there's no reason for my actions. Currently after that, I pursued college, got 2 associate's degrees, 1 in electronics, 1 in biomedics, and also a bachelor's in electronics. I worked at the college part-time while doing that. With my sentencing, I was sentenced to 3 months work release at Huber. So while I was doing that, I was actually in college at the time also. I was sentenced to 4 years probation, but it could be 3 years if obligations were made. I believe we didn't have all the restitution paid off. It was a joint restitution where 3 of us were paying it. At the end of the restitution, I talked to my PO officer and I just said, hey, I'm just going to pay the rest of it. I believe it was a little over $1,000 left and I just paid it all. Currently, I have a wonderful wife. I've been married for a little over 5 years. I have 3 beautiful children with my wife, as well as a handful of an 18-year-old. I worked 10 years for HVAC after college as an HVAC technician. And then recently, about 8 months ago, I had a great opportunity to switch over to building maintenance. And I pursued that career now for the Alexander Company. I actually enjoy my career every day, 9-hour days. And strangely enough, I never call anybody to come fix my house. I do it all myself now. I want to receive a pardon because my children asked me about it. They're getting older. I got 2 6-year-old twin girls. I have a 3-year-old autism boy and an 18-year-old girl. And they recently just asked me, like at least a month ago, Dad, have you ever been to jail? Yes, I've been once. And then they asked those questions. Well, I told them, I'm signing for a pardon and, your dad might get a second chance. So it's a great opportunity. My wife's pushing me too. She works for Meritor for a drug and rehabilitation center for mental health. She's been my rock. Without her, I don't know. And my parents, my dad's still there for me. He's never left my side, even through the convictions and everything, he's never left me. Also, my whole family is hunting. So when I was younger, I also did a lot of hunting with my dad, my uncle, and my brother-in-law. I'm hoping to maybe one day be able to get out in the woods with them again. I understand I can, crossbow and bow hunt and stuff like that, but nobody else in my family does that. So I can't relate to them. It's kind of weird, but plus also the gentleman hit it a couple sessions ago. Canada doesn't let us in if we have a felony. And my father-in-law, he's awesome. He's also a rock. He goes up every year and shows me huge pictures of fish. I say maybe 1 year. That's pretty much my life story. I've stayed out of trouble, beautiful children, house, and full-time employment. And I'm always busy. Kids always leave me busy. When I was younger, a little bit after sentencing, my dad's always a fisherman. I've helped out with Fishing Has No Boundaries with him. I haven't been able to do much community work, but that's pretty much my life story. Any questions? Sorry, this will be my second Zoom meeting ever, so it's hard. Do I look on the camera? Do I look at the screen? I apologize.
No, you're good. No one's figured it out yet. We're all just sort of fumbling through.
Gotcha.
I have a question. So a lot of the applicants we have, they have the youthful indiscretions, and then they have a family or they have something that falls into place, whether that's school or work, and that sort of gets them on the right track. For you, it was a little different. It sounds like you had a child, you were in school, you had the sort of blocks in place to stay out of trouble.
Yes,
and it didn't seem to click yet.
No.
So what changed? And I guess the point of that question is, how does that not happen again? How do you know that when money gets tight or things get tough, you don't fall down this path again?
Well, my dad actually sat me down when my daughter was about 4 years old and said, "John, you're going to have to be a man and you're going to have to stay on the right track." And I've never lost track ever since he's told me. My dad means so much to me. It's unbelievable. I actually thought recently, what if he's never here? And I honestly cannot imagine that. My family values have kept me in line. We've actually had issues before when I switched jobs. Money was tight. We made things work. I don't ever think I'd never go back into that life again. My family means too much to me. 4 kids. It's a handful, but I'd never go back to that life again.
Okay, thank you. Rest of the board, any questions? No? Okay, thank you for your time.
No, thank you guys for your time. Happy Memorial Weekend.
Thank you, you too. Okay. Ivor and Barkey. I don't see that name up here. Is that possibly the 920 number? Is there a Ivor and Barkey? Mr. Barkey?
Good morning. Mrs. Good morning.
I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong application. Mrs. Barkey, hi, thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, and thank you so much for allowing me to give me an opportunity to ask for a pardon. I was convicted of a few felonies, and I know that you all know what those felonies are for armed robbery, party to a crime. I got in that situation because just being a big brat and being very ungrateful. Both of my parents are still together. I came up basically kind of affluent, I would say, in a way. And we're very spoiled children. So I didn't really have a good concept of what was allowed and what was not really allowed. But I got into a crowd of people. I actually fell in love with a young man and fell into the wrong crowd. And basically I was I was easily influenced. And I would really, at that point, I really just wanted to just be with him and basically just do whatever it was that he asked of me to do. And at the time, too, I knew that what we were doing was wrong. It wasn't that I didn't know that, but I didn't realize the major ramifications that it would have on my life moving forward. So I got a sentence of 5 years in prison, and then also a sentence of 10 years probation, which I, during the first year of my incarceration, I read a book called We're All Doing Time by Pawlowski. And that book really changed me dramatically. It made me so aware of it made me cognizant of how I was thinking, why I did what I did, which was just being weak and not really standing in not really having a knowing of myself at that time, just wanting to be part of a crowd. So I didn't really know who I was at that time either. But during that, after I read that book, it made me open my mind up to so much more. So during my sentence of incarceration, I was incarcerated for 3 years, and then I was released on parole for 2 years. During all that time, even until today, I continue to read a lot of self-help. I'm always a lot of my friends always tell me how motivational I am to them, inspiration to them. I don't share that I'm a felon. I don't share that information with anyone. I don't want to. I didn't want to continue to claim that as who I am, because I'm not that person. Like I said, I didn't even know who I was at that time that I had got into that trouble. Also, in that, understanding that during the time that I was doing learning everything, I went to school. I got out. Thank God for my family, because my mom and my dad, they're business owners, they're entrepreneurs. My dad also worked for the city as well. He's a electrical engineer. And my mother, she's entrepreneur. She owned a few salons. And so when I got released, I went to beauty school, because at first I wanted to go into being a doctor, but my felony kept me from going into the medical field. So my mom just said, you know what, just go into beauty. I will hire you. So I worked with in the family beauty business for several years, until I decided to go off on my own and do more salon consulting. I'm very artistic, so I had a lot of it wasn't hard for me to do beauty. It's very easy for me. I got to talk to a lot of people, and then from there, I started helping women who were dealing with hair loss and low self-esteem, and like women who had cancer, helping them feel better daily by going into hair replacement and restoring their hair back and restoring their confidence. And that gave me a lot of a purpose. I felt very purposeful.
Mrs. Barkey?
Yes.
Sorry, we lost you for a minute, but you're back.
Oh, okay. But helping women restore their hair is what ended up helping me also connect and understand that helping women be more confident and helping them with their self-esteem did a lot for me as well. So that's how I feel like I've given back to the community. Recently, I've I feel like I'm 42 now, and I feel like I'm much too old to go into being a doctor. But I want to go into real estate. And in order for me to go into real estate, I would have to have a partner in order to pursue real estate, because in that field, you cannot have a felony in order for me to become a licensed real estate agent. And then I'd like to become a broker. And then from there, I would like to get into development. But before I pursue that, I cannot go to certain countries, because within my realm of beauty, I also I invent products as well. And there are certain products that I cannot go to other countries to see these products that I need to source in order to get these inventions made, or these products, these prototypes made, because of my felony. And of course, you have to fill out an application in that to get into certain countries, and having a felony in the country that you reside in will disqualify you from obtaining a visa or even coming into that country. So that is why I would like to receive a pardon. And once again, I really appreciate the board giving me an opportunity to speak and to get this out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Barkey. Any questions from the board? Cindy?
Good morning, Ms. Barkey. So the two crimes you committed were two armed robberies in restaurants where people, your co-conspirators here, entered the restaurants, pointed guns at the employees, at the patrons, were required to lay on the floor. And I read your file, and I just can't stop thinking about how terrifying that must have been for all of those people. Have you reflected on the impact on those victims over the years?
Every day. It's not a day that goes by that I don't think about what my part was in all of that. And yes, I do think about that, absolutely. It's one of those things that never leaves you, and you always, anytime if any type of bad thing occurs in my life, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Any time something goes bad in my life, I always think of karma, and I always think about, well, this must be from what you did from so long ago. Like I've had a bag stolen from me. I've had different things happen to me where I would think, oh man, this must be because of what I had done in the past. And so it's something that never has left me. And yes, I do think about them all the time. And I'm so sorry about my actions.
I mean, you played a significant role in these armed robberies. You gave the money to purchase the guns. You drove the getaway car. You cased out one of the restaurants by going in and eating and coming back and reporting that there were no cameras. One of your co-defendants says that when the cook fled the back door of the second place, that you said that you should kill him because he had seen you. I mean, these were really significant. This was a significant role you played.
I really did. It was a very significant role. And I was definitely, I don't blame anybody but myself. And it was significant, and it's something that I have to think about every day. And like I had said earlier about just being in a space at that time when I was 18, where I was just I didn't have any direction. And so I just did what I was asked to do. And I didn't realize the ramifications that it would have on everyone involved, the victims especially. And yes, that is so bad. That is every time I think about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Barkey, this is just when we run applicants' background checks and stuff like that. It'll note any sort of unpaid amounts. I do notice that you have unpaid taxes from the last couple of years, a couple $1,000s. Are those coming out of your current taxes?
Yeah.
Do
Yes.
you know about that? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, those are coming out of my current taxes. Yes.
Okay. Do you have any idea or notion when you will be up to date on your tax obligations?
Oh, yes. Yes, I should be up to date on my tax obligations within this year. I'll be filing later, and talking to my tax. I actually have a tax attorney that's helping me with the rest of my taxes and stuff. So, yes, that'll be this year.
Nadia, do you have any questions? Okay. All right, Ms. Barkey, do you have anything else to add? If not, I think you're the last one of this time grouping, and we'll take a 5-minute break. Anything to add, Ms. Barkey?
Yes, I would definitely like to apologize to the state. I'd like to apologize to the victims that were involved in the crimes that I had committed, and that I just appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barkey. Okay. So with that, let's take 5 minutes and come back at 9 or 10, a couple minutes after 10:02. Nick or Julie, could you message folks in the waiting room to let them know we will resume in 5 minutes?
Yes, thank you.
All right, see you in 5. Okay, we're just gonna give it one more minute. It looks like one other individual is trying to get joined. Okay. Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. I have, looks like one more person is trying to connect audio, so I'm gonna give it a minute. Okay, well, I'm just gonna get started. Hello, folks. My name is Erin Deely. I am a designated chair of the Pardon Board for the day. I'm also deputy legal counsel in the governor's office. And before this, I was a public defender in Milwaukee area, and then before that in Illinois. I'm going to let the two other board members we have here introduce themselves. Nadia, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm Nadia Perez. I'm the Assistant Secretary of the Department of Children and Families, and I also used to be a public defender.
And then Cindy.
Sorry, hi, I'm Cindy O'Donnell. I'm retired from the Department of Justice and the Department of Corrections, where I was an administrator and the deputy secretary. Thank you.
All right, and so with that, just a few housekeeping matters. If you are not the applicant that's being heard from, feel free to turn off your video and your audio while other folks are speaking, or while other folks are meeting with the board. If you do not trust your tech skills to go on and off video, don't stress about it. It's not a big deal. Then just stay on. But muting your microphone when you're not speaking is very, very helpful for audio quality. This is streaming under Wisconsin's open meetings laws. We need to have this meeting available for the public. So it is streaming on WISI and the Governor's Pardon Advisory Board YouTube website. You are asked to start off your time in front of the board with some introductory remarks. It's my understanding that you received some suggested questions to prepare. Keep in mind, we've reviewed your applications. Everything that you've provided, we've reviewed it. So we know all of that information. So try to keep those introductory remarks to 5 minutes or less. And keep it to things that we maybe that are in addition to, or things that you think might need some extra explaining or that you want to highlight for the board. If you get past that 5 minute mark, I might cut you off. Don't take it personally. It just means that we're trying to preserve time for the board to ask follow-up questions about your application or any clarifying questions they might have. Board decision-making works like this. The commission is going, or the board is going to hear from you. We will meet in closed session after all applicants for the morning are done in order to generate recommendations for the governor, and the governor makes the final call once he receives a favorable recommendation from the board. Timing wise, you can expect to hear how your application went, or whether you will be receiving a pardon, probably about a month. Once your meeting with the board is done, you can feel free to hop off, leave the meeting, no need to stay on. Okay, anybody have any questions or anything to add from the board? Cindy, Nadia, good? All right, then we'll get rolling. First applicant today is Ms. Holland.
Good morning.
Good morning. You can go ahead and introduce yourself. Thank you.
All right. My name is Tamika Holland, or I just recently got married, so my name is now Tamika Griffin. For the summary of the offense, I committed the act of theft by cashing fraudulent checks while I was working as a teller at a bank. I was convicted of theft by fraud as a party to a crime. I was sentenced to 5 years probation in order to pay restitution. I completed my probation without any issues. and completed the restitution as well. The summary of what I've done since in 1990, this occurred in 1994 and 96. I became a parent and have since set out to build my career regardless of the felony conviction. Since 1999, I've only held 3 jobs. That's because I have stayed employed gainfully throughout the last 26 years. I've been an insurance rep, a customer service trainer, and transitioned into education, and now I'm the dean of students at a Christian elementary school. I am also a chair member on the board of directors for a youth nonprofit. During this time, I've also earned my bachelor's degree in business management in 2011, earned credits towards earning a teacher's license from Alverno College in 2016, and just graduated May 13th with my master's in professional communication from UW Parkside to make myself more marketable as I look to transition into a new career field. The reason I feel I deserve a pardon is because in the time since my arrest, conviction, and sentencing, I've worked hard to become and continue to be a contributing, upstanding member of society. I have been persistent about surrounding myself with people who only want the best for me and help me make sound decisions. I've had minimal police contact outside of traffic-related offenses, the last of which was several years ago. I believe I deserve a pardon because I've spent the last 20 plus years of my life since my conviction doing everything I can to be a positive person who respects the law and has used my experience to help deter everyone I interact with, especially the kids in my school, from making sad choices that can change their lives forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holland. Congratulations on your nuptials.
Thank you.
Ms. Griffin, Mrs. Griffin. Okay. I don't have any questions from the board. Any questions? Okay. And I want to clarify for applicants, if the board doesn't have any questions, please do not go back and think that that is a bad thing. That usually it's just a reflection of your application was very thorough and the board doesn't have the need to clarify anything on your application. It is not a bad thing at all.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah. Unless you have anything to add, I think that will conclude your hearing. And you did have a very thorough application and a lot of impressive things that you've done since these offenses.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. You have a good weekend, Mrs. Griffin.
You as well enjoy the holiday.
All right. Next, Mr. Sue. My apologies if I mispronounced.
Good morning.
Good morning. You can go ahead and get started.
Okay. Good morning, Wisconsin Pardon Board. My name is Pinsu. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My family and I are really grateful for this chance. Getting this pardon will change my life. At 42 years old, I am a proud father of a 3-year-old daughter and 1-year-old son. I also have a wonderful wife who I've been with for over 19 years. English is my second language, and I have a bit of accent, so I wrote down a lot of what I want to say in case I forget how to say something. But hopefully you can understand everything I'm saying. First, I want to share a summary of my offenses and how my sentence went. I was 16 when I was arrested and 17 when I was convicted. I was guilty of theft by false representations. I was placed on probation for 10 years. During my probation, I worked really hard to repay the victim the money that I stole from them. Repaying the $47,000 was the least I could do for stealing the hard-earned money. At the time that this happened, I was hanging out with teenagers that were much older than I was. They talked me into going with my friend to Wisconsin to commit this crime. My family just immigrated to the US when I was a child, and we were struggling to meet ends meet. I ended up cashing fake checks for them without truly realizing that I was stole from real people. For that, I am really sorry to the victims. Next, I want to tell you about what happened after I completed my sentence. My conviction happened almost 25 years ago. Since then, I could probably say that I overcame my troubled youth by working hard, by learning, improving, and growing with each experience. I even got my GED. When I got released from jail, I worked at restaurants and warehouse jobs to earn an honest living, to start saving the money to pay back the victims of my crime. Sorry, I just in 2008, I started owning my own business. In the last decade, I finally made my way into real estate investment and own many residential and commercial properties. Today, I'm financially successful and proud of the work that I have done to better my position in life. More importantly, and above all, I have a great family that I work every day for. With 2 little ones and a beautiful, loving, supportive wife, I am extremely blessed in life. This partner will allow me to show my kids what you could do to create a positive life for yourself, even you made big mistake like I did. Over the years, I got involved with helping veterans and providing them with much needed medical supplies. Working with many churches, I helped run multiple drives for food and clothing to help the needy in my community. There was a time I was one of the people waiting to get the food and clothes on these type of drives. Helping my community is the least that I could do to give back. I know that my wife and I want to teach our kids that lending and helping hands is important to living to fulfilling life. And finally, I'm going to say what I think I should receive upon. I think that I have shown the pardon board how a person can overcome mistake and still make a positive impact in the world. I have been crime-free since the time I was arrested for this case. I also completed probation and paid back all the victims of my crime. I even wish that victims were here now so that I could personally tell them how sorry I am. In addition to that, I am not yet a U.S. citizen. This pardon will give me a path to citizenship and secure my place in this country that I have called home for the past 32 years. I am proud to be a contributing member of this country, but want to much to be a proud American citizen too. Lastly, I want to finally close that chapter of my life. I sincerely made huge efforts to change. I have grown. I know that I am a worthy role model for my 2 little ones too. I know I continue to dedicate the rest of my life to working hard. Please grant me this pardon. I will not let my family, the sport, the state, and my country down. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I do not have any questions. You had a very thorough application. I have nothing to follow up. Cindy, do you have anything?
I have a couple of things. The amount of restitution was very large, almost $50,000. How long did it take you to pay it? And how, I know you said you worked different jobs, but how were you able to pay off such a large amount?
It took me actually the whole 10 years to pay it off. I started from little. Well, I started saving more money and I just slowly chip away, but it took me literally 10 years to pay off.
Okay. And then a question about the crime itself. I know in your in your packet, you said you didn't know any better, and today you've told about how the other people involved were older than you. But you had done a similar crime in Oregon the year before, correct?
Yes.
And you know, I read through the whole very lengthy investigation report and the criminal complaint, and several people described you as being sort of a boss of the other guy, and that you told one of the victims that you've been doing this for 4 years. Another person involved said that you threatened anyone who gave info to the police. So, I mean, when I read that, I see more of a leadership role. Can you comment on that?
I was hanging around with, the people that was older than me, and they basically was instructing me and teaching me how to be able to talk to people and say these things. So during that time, I didn't know any better. And, I was only already like 15, 16 during the time. I was just kind of just following up and looking up to these people and just pretty much having the wrong role model and hanging around with the wrong people to telling me to do this and do that. I was just pretty much listening and follow. And yes, looking back, I just really naive and immature and didn't know any better.
Okay, thank you.
Nadia, do you have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Sue. If you have unless you have anything to add, we'll move on to the next person on the agenda.
Yes, I want to thank you for your generous opportunity and to tell you about my story. I think it's really amazing that the state of Wisconsin is doing to give so many people a second chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sue. Have a good holiday weekend.
You too, you guys. Thank you.
Next, we have, I don't know if I see the name, Mr. Falk.
Yes, good morning.
Oh, there you go. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me here to be here today. My name is Emil Falk. I'm 50 years old. I've been married for the past 29 years. I had 2 adult children. I speak English, Spanish, and Portuguese. I've been working at the city of Milwaukee for the past 17 years as a municipal electrician. The last year, I got promoted to an electrical inspector, and I'm serving in 2 districts at the city of Milwaukee right now. The way this crime, in 1990s, right around when I was 18 years old, I had a good job, 2 cars, and well-established credit. Around that time, I chose the wrong people to hang around with. I was rebellious. I was drinking, attending many parties, and using drugs. This bad behavior that I choose led me to be a lot of trouble. And finally, this path that I choose to take led me to commit a felony in 1993. Around that time in 1993, I just got married and my wife just got pregnant. Around that time, I wanted to celebrate with friends, my first child. Around that time, they came and picked me out, these bad people. My wife was opposed to that, and she would leave me if I go with these people. I didn't listen, and I ended up going with them. On that time, they were driving. I was in the back seat of the car, and then we were drinking and smoking marijuana. I took a dare to steal a car. We were driving on Greenfield Street Avenue in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, between 50 and 49th Street. They left me about 50 feet away from the car that I chose to steal that time. I took a flat screwdriver to break into the ignition. At that time, the car was parked in front of the bar, and then the owners were about 10 to maybe 20 to 30 feet in front of the car outside. At that time, I went into the car, tried to start the car with the screwdriver. The owners, they saw me doing that. They were really close by, and they ran to stop me to doing so. I got badly beaten until the police came. In court, I took full responsibility of the crimes that I had committed. I pleaded guilty. I got a life sentence of 7 months in jail and 7 months of probation. The life sentence was in part of the support that my wife and my family showed during the court times. In jail, I used the time to reflect on life. During that time in jail, I was employed and I was attending Bible studies. I had no problems in jail, no trouble, no fights or any problem. I got released in good behavior. My wife was pregnant at that time. And at that time I was just released early enough to be with my wife for the birth of my first child. After jail, I continued a Bible study with one of the Jehovah's Witnesses. I got a job through a community service called Esperanza Unida at that time. At that time, it was a community service. They paid me and then they teach me. I got a certificate on body work and car repair and welding. After that, I did continue my Bible study, and then I had a part-time job with a guy that was studying the Bible. He did own a business of carpentry. So he was teaching me carpentry at that time. After that, I applied an MTC I finished up a diploma in MTC on electrical trade, and I got hired by the union, the local 494 for electrical workers. I finished up in my, I got accepted for 494, and I never looked back after jail. I never looked back or contact those friends. I pay my restitution on time, and I finish up my probation. Right now, I am a main member of the Association of Electrical Inspector. I am a member of 494, the Electrical Working Union. I hold a master electrician license for the state of Wisconsin. I hold a commercial electrical inspector license for the state of Wisconsin. I hold a CDL license for the past 17 years. I've been married for the 29 years. I raised 2 adult children. They're doing pretty well. I'm serving my community, working as an electrical inspector. I'm serving 2 districts right now, and I'm involved with the church participation in the community and with the fire department. I have a good friend in there with Lieutenant Parrish that we help other adults to be aware of the opportunities that learning a trade can present to themselves. But around 2017, 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with terminal cancer. At that time, they give me 6 years to live, perhaps. 6 months to live. I'm still taking chemotherapy. The reason why I'm applying for pardon, I took this bad decision. I feel shame and embarrassed. I'm sorry. I have caused an embarrassment to my family. I feel shame. I caused property damage and suffering to other people. As a cancer patient, I would like to travel to different countries to seek different cancer treatments and actions. I do not want my wife, husband, or my children's father to die as a felon. Being a felon has impacted my current career. I cannot work in police department or university. Being a felon, I cannot apply for positions that will advance my career. A felon is not who I am today. I'm a good employee, a good father, a good husband, a good church member, a good mentor, a good citizen, and a good human being. Thank you guys. And I ask you guys please to consider my application to pass it to the government. And I thank you for your time today. And I'm sorry, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have no questions. Cindy?
Good morning, Mr. Falk. The victim of your crime was contacted and asked questions about how you've lived your life since then, and he supports your pardon. And I wonder if you have a reaction to that.
Well, I appreciate it. I wanted to contact him, and after I changed my life, but I never could. And I've been embarrassed and that I did that to him too. And I feel really shame and sorry that I did those things when I was young.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Mr. Falk, and we wish you continued health, and we're so glad that your health allowed you to be here today to tell us your story. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good holiday weekend, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. McClung?
Yes.
Hi,
Yes,
Ms.
I'm
McClung.
here. Hi.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Teresa McClung, and I am I'm very nervous. So I wrote the stuff down that I wanted to say. My conviction was misappropriate ID and fraud. And I paid my restitution, and well, I was placed on probation, and I paid my restitution and my supervision fees. And I also entered right after that, it was called CCEP. It was the Community Correctional Employment Program. I completed that, believe it was, I think it was 12 weeks. And then I gained employment through the lady I was working with, Miss Linda Gibson. My volunteer work that I do for the community, during the pandemic, when the pandemic first started, I would go to pantries and I would get food and take it around to the elderly people that I know, and cleaning supplies that I purchased on my own, the cleaning supplies. I also take care of an elderly lady. I've been taking care of her since 2013. She's a disabled veteran. I met her through an agency called Visiting Angels. It was a home health agency. And after taking care of her, I realized that she didn't have any family here in Milwaukee. So I ended up moving her in with me, and she's been with me ever since. And I don't receive payment for that. I just do it because I had grown to love her. I went to Milwaukee Career College in 2011 and received a diploma for being a medical assistant. And I am now employed at Milwaukee Health Services that does a lot of stuff for the community. I took some CBRF classes, it's community-based residential facility classes, to manage and work in group homes. I'm now currently in school at Indiana Tech for human services and nursing. What am I this? And I know my choice that I made, it was a terrible choice to do. I was hanging with the wrong crowd, and very sorry, and I want to apologize over and over again to the victim. I surround myself now with positive people. I have my two best friends. They are both therapists. I have a huge support system, my family. And the felony, it limits me from, well, being a felon limits me from being an entrepreneur, doing some of the things that I want to do. Like I want to manage and run a group home. And I also had started the process 2 years back to become a daycare provider. And then I later found out that I couldn't be a daycare provider with a felony. Sometimes I feel like that with me being a felon, I feel like I'm still in jail, and I just kind of block it out and I just keep pushing forward to do more and more things. I didn't realize how much being a felon bothered me until I went to grieving counseling. And I could hear my mother just asking, why did I do something like that? Because I was raised better. And I just want to apologize to the victim and just let her know that I'm sorry, and I hope that she's healed from it and that you guys would grant me a pardon.
Thank you, Ms. McClung.
You're welcome.
So I just have a question. A lot of our applicants, their offenses happened when they were rather young, teenagers, early 20s. Your offense was you were a little older. You were in your 30s, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm. I was 31,
so where a
I think.
lot of applicants can say, I've grown up, I've aged out of this. Do you want to speak to that and speak to, since that did happen when you were an adult, quote unquote, what is different about adult Ms. McClung now that the board can be assured this won't happen again?
I just made a stupid choice, and I was hanging with the wrong people, and I was a single parent, and it was just scary. And my mother was sick at the time, had just got diagnosed with cancer and didn't have much time to live, and I was just scared. But I've learned my lesson. I paid my debt to society. I do as much stuff as I can. I try and stay busy. I'm in school. I haven't, did anything, been in trouble since. And I want more out of life. Like I wanna open a group home and then eventually do something for homeless people. A lot of stuff I can't do because of being a felon.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the rest of the board?
I hope that answered your question.
It does, yes, it does. And also, it's really impressive the way that you've continued to pursue education and make that part of your life. That's very impressive.
Thank you.
Anything from the rest of the board? Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Unless you have anything else to add.
Thank you so much. No, I just want to thank you guys for listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Have a wonderful, you too, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next applicant is Mr. Pawlowski. You can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good morning, board. My name is Adam Pawlowski, and yeah, I was one of them young kids. Did a few bad things there, and grown up ever since. My crime was stealing car stereos, theft of removable property. I had a few that were stolen from me, and it just thought, hey, if people could do it to me, I can do it to other people. Young and dumb, I guess you want to call it. So I got sentenced in '98, and I did 6 months in House of Correction, 3 years of probation. Once I got out from House of Correction, I moved out of the area, moved out of Milwaukee, moved up north, and started a family, and never looked back at crime ever again after that. just moved on. Got my high school diploma, got a good job. I travel for work right now, all across the country, fixing a product that my company makes. And the reason I'm asking for a pardon is because my company travels to Canada and they frown upon felons up there. So it makes it hard for me to get up there. So that's the reason I'm asking for a pardon from you guys. Short and sweet.
Thank you. I did not have any questions from your application. Cindy or Nadia? Go ahead, Cindy.
So you actually do have some additional criminal behavior. You had a misdemeanor operating after revocation, your 6th offense in 2002, and you were sentenced to jail for 30 days and your license was revoked for 30 months. Is that correct?
Actually, I did not go to jail on that. I had, because of my job and my family and my kid, they gave me the ankle bracelet.
Okay.
Yes.
But that's, I mean, that's a misdemeanor. You didn't disclose that on your application. Is there any reason?
I completely forgot about that. I tried not to think about my past. I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. No, I'll openly admit it. Yes, I did it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in 2005, you had a misdemeanor operating without a carrying license in Marathon County. And you were sentenced to a forfeiture or fine. It was an amended charge from a second OWI. Is that you?
I never had an OWI, no.
No, I'm not saying you did. It was amended. You got a misdemeanor operating without a carrying license in Marathon County.
I don't remember that one. I was actually looking at my stuff and I don't remember that one.
Okay.
I always have my license with me, so I don't understand that. I guess I had driving after revs, 20 years ago.
6 of them.
Yes, I was.
Most people get one.
They racked up very fast in a short amount of time. And then, yes, I lost my license. And then once I got it back, that was it. I got a few speeding tickets. It's been, 6 years since my last one? 5 years?
Looks like your probation was revoked. Why was your probation revoked?
I don't know.
You were sentenced to county jail or the House of Corrections?
Yeah, I was on probation before this for some juvenile crimes.
Okay. Yeah. And then when this offense happened, you got revoked on the.
Yes, and that's why I got sent to House of Correction. Yes.
Okay. So I mean, 98. You're 19 years old. You do these equipment thefts. Okay.
Yes.
But then, 6 operating after revocations in 2002. Now you're 23, and then the 2005 operating without carrying a license. Now you're 26. I mean, you're 44 now. So
correct.
Why did it? A lot of people get in trouble, and why did it take so long for you to sort of turn the corner on this stuff?
I don't have a really good answer on that one.
What changed then? What changed for you that you did turn? You clearly turned the corner. You haven't had any offenses since 2005. But what changed?
The whole family situation. Getting married and having 2 kids. Okay. Just realizing that I got to do something different here, and I worked my butt off to do whatever I could to get my license back, even, and just kept working and supporting the family.
Okay.
Wife wasn't working, and I had to do what I had to do.
And you're committed to a law-abiding life now.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
What did it take for you to get your license back after that many revocations?
Just to stop driving and behave. I guess I made my wife drive me everywhere.
Yeah.
It was rough.
Yeah, I know depending on where you live, that's not easy.
Yes.
There isn't public transportation.
Yeah.
When did you get your
Wisconsin, out in the country, there's no public transportation up here.
Right. When did you get your license back?
Oh boy. I can't think off the top of my head now.
That's okay. It's an on-the-spot question. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's one of those I just don't want to remember.
No problem. Okay, any other questions from the board? And do you have anything to add, Mr. Pawlowski? If not, we'll go on to the next applicant.
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Want to say thank you for all this.
Of course. Thank you, sir. Have a good holiday weekend.
Thanks to you too.
The next applicant is Mr. Braybender.
Yes, I'm William
Hi.
Braybender. Hi.
Go ahead, sir.
Like to begin saying I've learned a lot since I was 17 years old when I did something stupid. I regretted what I've done. I did 5 months, 5 days in prison. And since then, I've never been in trouble with the law ever. Nothing. Not even a drunk driving. It's made me, the 5 months in prison made me the person who I am today. And I've had a clean record ever since then. I've been in a new person, I'd say. And I never went back to a life of crime. I was 17, tried as an adult. In high school, the Marines wouldn't take me or recruit me because I had a felony conviction hanging over my head. And for the last 35 years since I've been released from prison, I was released on special action release early, 2 days before Thanksgiving. I've never been in trouble since. Do you have any questions for me?
I do not have any questions. I do have just an observation and a comment. You had a lot of very lovely letters of recommendation.
Oh.
And that clearly is, you know, a reflection of the connections and the relationships you've made and the number of people who are willing to vouch for you. And that was a really lovely thing to read.
Sure, thank you. Yeah.
Cindy?
Yes, and I was going to add that, so thank you, Aaron, because there were a lot of impressive letters. And the only other thing I want to say, Mr. Braybender, is you have lived an honorable life since these incidents at 17, and it's never too late to get your GED.
No, I would like to, if upon getting a pardon, I would, two retired police officers, you're reading their letters or have them, want me to drive school bus for the school company, Lamer's school bus in Sauk City. And it would be more impressive saying I was pardoned to be around children or take the care of children. I can handle school buses. And I think it would be good on the application if they do get pardoned, that they would see that on CCAP, that I can say I was pardoned by the governor.
I think that's probably right.
All right.
Thank you. It looks like the board doesn't have any other questions. Unless you have anything to add, we'll move to our last applicant for the morning.
It's formed me the way I have turned out. It made me raise my son the way I did, who's a straight A student through high school, to keep him deterrent from drugs or crime. And I wasn't hard on him, but I was firm, and it worked. And I learned the hard way, so I wanted him to learn from my mistakes. And I made sure that he did. And I'm very proud of my son today.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your time today. You have a really lovely weekend. Okay, Mr. Ace, you're the last applicant this morning. Would you go ahead and get started?
Yes, I just want to make sure you can hear me. This is my first time using Zoom. Okay, hello, my name is Derek Ace, and I was found guilty 15 years ago of attempting to flee and elude a police officer on August 15th, 2006. I served around a week jail time, was fined, and sentenced 28 months probation. I was discharged early from my probation on June 1st, 2009. I completed the remaining terms of my sentence. Since then, I have participated in a variety of charitable events and given my time willingly to help others. I volunteer at the Madison Concourse. I was a volunteer at the Madison Concourse Hotel's holiday party for 4 years in a row. As stated in one of my letters of recommendation, I've also done photography work for the Veterans Museum for the past few years. I thoroughly enjoy this and will continue participating as long as I'm asked to return. Lastly, I donate my photography services to families that have been hit with sudden troubles such as fires or catastrophic events and offer them free family sessions. Since my conviction, I have maintained employment this entire time at the Madison Concourse Hotel, along with brief stints with Hy-Vee grocery store and the Dorf House Supper Club. I remain on excellent terms with both of these employers. I have also built and established a photography business over the past 10 years. After saving money for my business and through work over the years, last year I may have conquered the biggest achievement of my life. I bought a house. Why I should be considered for a pardon. The mistake I made almost 16 years ago that drastically changed my life in many ways has haunted me ever since it happened. It caused me problems finding employment, made it impossible for employment through certain employers, and caused issues in relationships. I have been discounted and looked down upon for my mistakes on various accounts throughout the years. It's incredibly degrading, but I take full responsibility for what I did. It is what it is, but I'm hoping for a change. However, it has also changed me for the better. There came a point where I just got straight up sick of getting in trouble. I actually had this realization shortly before my mistake 15 years ago. After kicking encounters with the law and being a good person, kicking encounters with the law and being a good person may have taken longer than I wanted, but it's a very safe bet that these positive and uplifting patterns will continue from here on out. I am not a bad person. I am not a monster. I am a kind man who has a lot to live for, projects positive energy on everyone around me, does the right thing, and is responsible as one can be at this point. I have worked incredibly hard to get where I am today, and I hope that you find these words to be true. Since this incident, I have been trying to be more and become better, plain and simple. Regardless of the outcome here, I will continue to be this person. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So I do have a question. There was a person in the car with you. I assume that was a friend at the time.
Yes.
And you were talking about how this felony has had a significant impact on your life, and it caused you a lot of strife and problems throughout the years. At the same time, the fleeing, it sounds like it was probably pretty terrifying, extremely terrifying for the person in the car with you. And you're very lucky that no one got hurt, that this didn't end up a lot different. So you spoke a lot to how the felony has impacted you. I wonder if you could speak to how this incident impacted the person that was with you, and what sort of, if you can speak to how you think about the impact on the other person here and potential victims.
Yes, obviously that person was very upset with me at the time. He yelled at me immediately after the incident ended. He is a friend of mine. He is still a friend of mine. His family was very upset with me for a while. I can't express how much I didn't mean to put him in harm's way. I didn't mean to endanger him. I didn't mean to threaten his life or anything like that. We, to this very day, are still good friends. We look back at it and we talk about it. And yeah, I mean, we're just very thankful that neither of us are injured. And he has forgiven me for this incident. Yes, I'm just as sorry to him as I am everyone else. And I'm sorry I didn't make that more apparent.
I'm glad you guys were able to maintain your friendship after that. That's great. Any other questions from the board? Okay, wonderful. What is your current position? It looks like you've been at the same employer for 20 years, which is really impressive. You don't see that a lot anymore.
So I was, after this incident, so I originally worked in the restaurant in the evenings while this happened, but after I was released from jail, I came back and I didn't have a job. My job had been eliminated. And the restaurant manager at the time reached out to our chef who had just started, Charles Lazareski. And he agreed to take me aboard. And I had experience in culinary prior to doing restaurant work. So he agreed to take me aboard and see if I was a good fit for his team. It all worked out. I actually still do the same job that I did 16 years ago. I'm a line cook. I work breakfast in the mornings. And the only reason I haven't sought out like a promotion or anything is because of my photography business. During the summertime and autumn, I'm incredibly busy with that, and it gives me the flexibility to do both. And it's a really good medium. It's nice to do two different things that are completely unrelated, and two different things that I kind of actually like doing.
That does sound nice. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I think that concludes your hearing. Have a good weekend, sir.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, with that concludes our morning, folks. I'm going to, okay, yep. I don't, Miss Rowe. Staff, okay. So could I get a motion to move into close, or I'd like to make a motion to move into closed session pursuant to sections 1985 1A, 1D, and 1F of the Wisconsin statutes. Do I have a second from the board?
Second.
Thank you. With that, the board will move into closed session for purposes of deliberating on the cases that were presented to us today. I'm going to move with Sarah Rowe to the waiting room. And with I and discontinue streaming, we will be back in open session at 1 p.m. Hello, everyone. I'm just letting folks sort of get in and get settled. And then Nick, if you could let me know, or Julie, when streaming is up and running.
We are up and going.
Great. All right, looks like everyone's in. Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Healy. I am designated chair of the Pardon Board today. I'm also deputy legal counsel in the governor's office. Before this, I was a public defender in Wisconsin and Illinois. And we have two other board members here with us today. I'll let them introduce themselves. Nadia, if you want to go ahead first.
Hi, folks. I'm Nadia Perez-Reyes. I'm the Assistant Secretary at the Department of Children and Families, and I was also a public defender.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy O'Donnell. I was Deputy Secretary at the Department of Corrections for 6 years and then an administrator at the Wisconsin Department of Justice.
Okay, and then a few housekeeping matters. Just to let folks know, we are being streamed on WISI as well as the Governor's Pardon Board YouTube channel. That's in order to comply with the open meetings law here in Wisconsin. The proceedings here today are public. Each applicant should plan to give up to 5 minutes introduction. You were provided a list of questions to sort of guide that introduction. Of course, we have reviewed your files. We've reviewed your application. So my advice to you is to not spend too much time sort of laying out all the nitty-gritty details or the tiny details of your life that might have been provided in the application. I mean, we've read it. This would be a time to sort of summarize and maybe highlight the parts of your application and your life that you really want to be highlighted today. And that's going to make sure we have time to ask folks questions if the board thinks it's necessary, and if we don't have just a flag. Not every applicant does ask questions. That's okay. That doesn't mean anything bad. Sometimes an applicant might have a very thorough presentation or a very thorough application, and it won't be necessary for us to have follow-up questions. Please don't think that that's a bad thing. If folks go long on their introductions, I might ask that you pause and give us an opportunity to ask some questions. Please don't be offended by that or think you did anything wrong. It's just purely a function of us wanting to make sure we have time to ask questions. All right. If you are not currently before the board, if your case isn't the one that's being heard, feel free to turn off your video. And then, of course, if you're not speaking, please have your mic muted. If you don't want to turn off your video, let's say you're afraid you will get it back on if you turn it off. Some people are not as tech savvy as others. That's totally fine. It's not a big deal either way. But feel free to not be on camera if you don't want to be, if your case isn't up. When your case is up, we love to see faces. That's really, really helpful for us, but not required. If you are done, feel free to leave the meeting. You do not have to stay on. Lastly, folks can plan to hear about what the outcome of their hearing is about a month. All right. Anything I missed from Cindy or Nadia? All right, then let's get going. First individual up today is Jack Rucker.
Good afternoon.
Hello, please introduce yourself. Go ahead.
All right, so I'm Jack Rucker the fourth, currently staying in Battle Creek, Michigan. Was raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In 2003, I was convicted of robbery with threat of force accessory, in which it was a poor life choice. I was playing a role of being a follower at the time, which led to jeopardizing the safety of the employees at the bank, civilians at the bank, the officers that were on duty, and many other parties that had to take the time to assist in the matter. A little background on myself. I'm the oldest of 12, 8 on my mom's side, 4 on my father's. So foster kid, given away at the age of 5, stayed at different foster homes, raised by my grandmother at the age of 9. Then I finally met my biological father at 9 years old. So both parents were abusive. At the age of 17, which was my last year of high school, I ran away from my father's home, couldn't deal with the abuse any longer, was homeless, and actually a lot happier homeless. Note, throughout high school, I had a 3.5 GPA, played multiple sports with multiple scholarships. Throughout the course of all this, note that I also was raised in church by my grandmother and my father. So I was a Bible study scholar, member of the choir, just really actively involved in church activities. So just going back to when I ran away, I ended up being around a lot of people that were a negative influence, which were certain family members, friends, and peers. So in 2003, we'll go back to the incarceration, I had time to reflect on the mistakes that I made. I was taken in by some of the older, more mature people in the Wisconsin prison system, which helped me get back to understanding that I needed to correct my behavior in order to have a bright future. Since my release, I've maintained employment. I've earned an associate's degree in information technology. I've also earned a bachelor's degree in business management with a focus in project management and held a 3.7 GPA. So even after all of these achievements, obviously there was still a struggle. Many doors were closed due to my record. I continued to work hard, show that I had great character, shaking hands with all the right people, and proven over time that I've been rehabilitated and can and will be a major asset to society. My hard work has led to working for 2 Fortune 500 companies, been a great role model within the community, role model for my family, and speak on being the first person to ever graduate from college in my family. So all of my nieces, nephews, et cetera, they all look up to me. And also a role model for the troubled youth within the community. So even at barbershops or playing a pickup basketball game, I coach and have different conversations and try to lead people in the right direction. A pardon for me will help me open doors, obviously, to share my story a little bit more in detail. Say group homes, I mean, those doors are closed, possibly even being a correctional officer of some sort and being able to share my experiences and coach and develop the youth and maybe even people my age, and also help me excel my career. I've been in management for over 12 years now. I've helped assist people and help people get life-changing careers in all the facilities that I've partaken in. Just hoping for a pardon. I mean, that's like been one of the biggest obstacles, per se, in my life over the last, what is this, conviction in 2003. So it's been almost 20 years now. That's all I have. You guys have anything for me?
Cindy?
Good afternoon, Mr. Rucker. Just want to recognize, as you said, you committed this one crime when you were 21 and you have not looked back. And I was really impressed with the letter from Miss Hardy in your packet. So can you tell us a little bit about that and what that relationship has meant to you and her role in your life?
Miss Hardy? Well, I'll keep it short and simple. So we'll talk about family. So I was released from in prison in 2005, and I stayed with family for a short time in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, until they gave me my interstate compact. So I moved back to Michigan. I really didn't have anywhere to go, and Ms. Hardy opened her doors up to me. She seen something in me, kind of the same way that the many correctional officers or the crowd that I was around while incarcerated. She seen something in me, and she said, she kind of knew a little bit of my story, and she said, "You're gonna go back to school. I'm gonna open my door to you. You can stay here rent-free or whatnot." And I promised her that I would not let her down. And everything that we talked about in regards to getting educated and carrying myself a certain way and living life with a purpose. I mean, she was a great coach for me. So, yeah.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do not have any questions. Nadia? No. Thank you very much, Mr. Rucker.
Okay.
It was really nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, next applicant, Mr. Kogis.
Thank
And
you.
Mr. Rucker, you can stay on if, oh, okay, good. I didn't know if he was gonna. Go ahead, Mr. Kogis.
My name is Nathaniel Kogis. I live in Mequon, Wisconsin. I am 46 years old. 28 years ago, when I was a senior in high school, I was driving home from a movie and saw some of my friends walking and decided to give them a ride. They told me to pull over and they jumped out of my car and took a jacket from a kid who was walking. At that moment, I knew it was wrong. At that time, everyone involved were 17 years old and I was 18 years old. I was charged with party to a crime and sentenced to 3 years of probation and community service. I have completed both without an incident. Since the completion of my sentence, I have done volunteer work for Family Enrichment Center in Ozaukee County, implementing computer and network upgrades for COPE Suicide Hotline and Boys and Girls Club, and taught English as a English to second language to foreign exchange students. Since that day, I've been a productive member of our society. I have earned an associate degree in computer science, undergrad in science, and master's in business administration from MSOE. And I have co-authored and published 10 healthcare papers in various journals. My very first job after college was an IT manager at MSOE and an IT project manager at Ford Motor Company, a director of an international school. And for the past 7 years, I have been a neuro operations manager at Aurora Healthcare. And next week, I will be starting a new role as the director of neuro health informatics. I'm asking for pardon because, we all make poor choices when we're young. 28 years ago, I made poor choice with making friends. I am currently married with 2 children, 11 and 12 years old. And being a father, it puts things in perspective. I often wish I could turn back the clock and do it differently. But what I can do now is to raise my children to make good and honest decisions. I am humbly asking for forgiveness because I have shown that I'm a productive member of our society. I have worked really hard for the past 28 years to prove this. And I will continue to make positive contributions to our society. Thank you for your time and consideration. If you have questions, please ask.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any questions. I did want to note that, and I don't know if you received this directly, but this doesn't happen a whole lot. The DA and judge both supported your application, which we don't see a whole lot, which is great to see. I want to make sure you saw that.
Thank you.
Any questions, Cindy?
Good afternoon, Mr. Kogis. It's in the application process, it's not required, but it's encouraged that you submit letters of support from family or coworkers or community involvement, and you chose not to submit any letters, and I'm wondering why you chose that.
We did a thing in filling out the application. I felt that it was not needed. If it is needed, yes, I'll be glad to.
No, it's not required. I'm just wondering why you made that choice.
Well, I guess follow up to that. If you were, what do you think the people around you would say about you? What would those letters say?
In a simple sentence, I think they would say, I don't compromise my integrity.
Thank you. Any other questions? Nadia, Cindy?
Can I ask a question? Mr. Coates, after the incident, did you still have contact with some of those same friends? Do you still see them at all, you know, in the community, including your the victim in your case? Have you come across any folks or had any conversations? And I'm just asking that because I think, you know, from everything you've done, you have a lot of perspective, and just wondering what some of those interactions may have been like, even if it's, you know, you steering clear. So
My answer is, oh my God, no. I'm sorry, no, no.
Okay. Well, if you don't have anything else to add, that will conclude your hearing for the day.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to flag for people, I thought I did earlier, in case I didn't, if there are a few questions, if there are no questions, again, it's not a bad thing. It just might mean we don't have any follow-up questions and you had a very thorough application. I don't want folks to leave and think it's any reflection of their application. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kojas. Have a good holiday weekend.
Thank you, you as well. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, Mr. White.
Hello, can you hear me okay? Thanks for having me today. My name is Travis White. I am seeking pardon for two separate cases. In the first case, I was charged with take and drive a vehicle without the owner's consent and theft of movable property. There's actually 6 counts on that particular case. Count 1 is its own count. Count 2 and 4 go together, and counts 3, 5, and 6 go together. Count 1, I stole a vehicle with a friend after a party. We were using drugs and alcohol prior. We drove a vehicle around and eventually caused some damage to the vehicle and abandoned it. Count 2 and 4, again, I was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. A friend gave me a spare set of keys to a car that his girlfriend had traded to a dealership. I walked to the dealership, I stole the car. I drove it until it ran out of gas, and then I went to a nearby garage, which then I stole a moped out of and drove it near a friend's house and kind of ditched it in the woods. Count 3, 5, and 6, I was at a party that night. I went home with a friend. I was feeling out of place. I left his place. I stole the car. I stopped running. The car stopped running while I was driving it. And then I went to a nearby farm and went into a shed. And then I stole an ATV. I drove it about a quarter of a mile from my house and I parked it in the woods and I went home. And that's the first case that I'm asking pardon for. The second case, I do want to add that I cooperated with law enforcement and confessed to all the crimes that I committed. The second case, actually, so after the first case, on October the 14th of 1998, I was waived into adult court at 16 years old. I was sentenced to 1 year with Huber privileges and 6 years probation, and I was ordered to pay restitution at that time for the first case. At that time, I went to jail. I participated in a treatment program called the Addict Core Program, which was a requirement. It was very intensive where I would go from the Huber Center for 6 hours per day, Monday through Friday. I was involved in anger management, rational emotive therapy, corrective thinking, and AODA classes. I successfully completed that treatment in about 6 months. I also worked at Taco Bell until 1 a.m. in the morning, approximately 40 hours a week following, it was after class while I was in the Huber Center. I was released from jail after about 9 months with good time. After being released about 3 months later, I was then charged with the second case that I'm seeking pardon for, which is operating motor vehicle without the owner's consent. Again, I was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. I was with a friend and we stole the vehicle and we caused some pretty extensive damage to this vehicle. Shortly after, at that time, I was given an alternative to revocation in Black River Falls Minimum Security Prison. I was 17 years old. I believe that while I was in prison, I started my personal growth. While in prison, I worked on and I received my HSED. I also completed hours at Western Wisconsin Technical College. During that time, I had a 4.0 GPA. The hours consisted of 108 hours building maintenance and care, 85 hours building services, 15 hours building and grounds, 20 hours architectural print reading, 34 hours of Microsoft Word, 17 hours of computer literacy, 225 hours of mobile home repairs, and I was given 3 college credits. I was released from there in 2001. Sometime that same year, I was arrested for obstructing an officer. I lied to him about drinking and I tried to run on foot. I was then caught. At that time, I went to jail for a probation violation. I was jailed for 2 months awaiting sentencing. At that time, I was granted time served for my crimes, and the restitution owed was then ordered and put into a civil judgment. No further requests have been made since that time as far as the restitution. I guess reasons why I'd like to be considered for a pardon. I was 16 and 17 years old when I committed these crimes. I'm now 40. It's been 24 years since I committed the crimes. I've not been in any legal trouble besides a minor traffic violation. I've continued to work on my personal growth during the last 24 years. I've been married and divorced. I have an 18-year-old son who loves his dad. I've tried to be the best, to be a good role model in his life over the years. I've been involved in his Cub Scouts, football, choir, as well as his education. I've been involved in treatments, therapy, counseling, as well as being involved in a 12-step recovery program for drugs and alcohol addiction. I've been given the privilege to work with other men with their struggles. I get to share with them my experience, strength, and hope, and help them to stay sober and overcome their addictions. I've also held a treasurer position for one of my 12-step groups for 2 years. I collect money that's donated and I make monthly disbursements to on a national level, state level, our area and district levels as well. That money goes for literature and rent for the places that we hold our meetings and coffee and that type of thing. At the beginning of my recovery process, I was involved in a program called CARE. It's a community-funded program that helps addicts and alcoholics to get sober. I participated in that program for a year. I went to individual therapy and was given a shot once a month of Vivitrol. Vivitrol is an opioid blocker. The CARE program was very helpful to me in my first year of sobriety. I've been involved in a 12-step program since 2012 and very active since 2016. Tomorrow, May 28th, will mark 6 years of continued sobriety for me. During this time, I believe that I've grown spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. I continue to work on my growth by staying involved in a 12-step program and working with other addicts and alcoholics. I've worked in construction much of my adult life. I've held steady and stable employment since I was 20 years old. Someday I'd like to start my own business. I feel as though having crimes on my record prevent certain people and opportunities for work to be obtained from my mistakes that happened many years ago. Not everyone is willing to let someone with a criminal past work on their home or trust to give them a down payment to start the work. My criminal record also deters my ability to seek other full-time employment from a business, which in turn may cause financial instability for my family and myself. Lastly, I'm very passionate about hunting and would really enjoy the opportunity to pass on traditions that I have learned from family and friends about rifle hunting. I would like to participate in teaching youths how to hunt, take a vet out hunting, or someone with a disability. I believe I've become a better member of society over the years. I've grown as a person and I work hard. I've learned quite some time ago that there are no good excuses to disrespect anyone's property or cause damage to their lives the way that I did. I not only stole and wrecked something of theirs, but I'm sure I caused pain and stress in their lives. I hope that I've provided you with enough information to be considered for this pardon. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Cindy?
Yeah, I guess I have a question about the restitution. So it was converted to a civil judgment. You said no further requests have been made. I don't know what that means. You owed restitution. It when you got revoked, they converted it. And so have you done anything about paying that off?
I did make some payments towards that while I was on probation. I have not paid any restitution towards any of that. It was my understanding that those individuals would had to take me to some type of civil court and request that I make payment on that. And I never have had that come up as an issue. So I guess the answer is no, I have not made any payments towards that.
But so your understanding is they may not have pursued.
It's my understanding that there was no pursuit for them to come after me for any of that restitution owed.
Okay. I mean, it looks like it's a fairly considerable amount, 28,000 from the 99 case, 5,000 from the 98 case, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, when you destroy vehicles is a big price tag, as you know.
It absolutely is. And I would be willing to, make payments towards that if there's a request for that of any sort. Obviously I'm not going to be able to pay upfront $28,000 all in one shot, but I would definitely work hard in order to obtain that goal and make right on that.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what the status is today. I was just curious what you knew about it and where it was at in your mind. So thank you.
Yep.
So you mentioned you're coming up on 6 years sobriety, and I mean, congratulations. That is an incredible feat. The crimes were, 20 some years ago, and it sounds like substance use had a significant role in those offenses. So between the time of the offenses and 6 years ago, what happened? What clicked for you to sort of get a hang of the sobriety 6 years ago and not 23 years ago? Was it just, could you speak to that?
I think that it had just enough was enough for me. I continued to dabble with drugs and alcohol a good portion of my life. And I believe that I needed to make some changes, and I needed to surrender my life and my will over to something bigger than myself. And otherwise, I felt that I was going to end up, never succeeding in life or being able to obtain the goals that I would like to obtain and get the things out of life that I'd like to achieve out of life and be a part of other people's lives and be a person among persons and care about others. It was just time for me to do something different in my life and move forward and not let those things hold me down anymore.
Thank you. Nadia, do you have any questions? Thank you. If you have anything else to add, feel free. Otherwise, we'll move to the next applicant.
No, I think that's all we have.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you for having me today and the consideration.
Of course. Thank you. And you have a good weekend.
You as well.
Okay, Mr. Keller. Mark Keller? Sir Mark Keller? Okay, if not, we will have someone staffing today reach out. And then we'll move on to the next. Jennifer Harris.
Hi.
Hi, Ms. Harris.
I got bumped off the call already twice. So if my computer freezes up, I just have to log back in and then I don't know why it's happening. It never happens otherwise.
If that happens, don't rush. It's okay. If that happens, we will have someone on staff just call you so we can continue the conversation. But right now you're good.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. I am Jennifer Harris, and I'm here today to request a pardon for the burglary I committed in 1996. I caused a lot of trouble from 96 to 98, and I'm really nervous, so I did write my statement down. I did just edit some big parts out of it to be more concise, and I don't want you to think I didn't want to talk about things. I just want to respect your time, but I'm prepared if you have questions. I'd like to share a little bit about what led to my criminal behavior. I became pregnant at 15 and was pressured into an engagement and forced to keep the baby. I ended up living with my fiance's family, and his dad helped me get a job at Country Corners. He was friends with Phil Majerus, the owner who's the victim of my crime. In July of 95, my fiance and his dad died when their plane crashed in the Gulf of Alaska. And his mom was losing her mind with grief, and it became unsafe to stay there for me and the baby. I was 17 and I returned to my parents asking to put the baby up for adoption, but they wouldn't allow it. I left home as soon as I turned 18, answering a roommate wanted ad. The woman I lived with introduced me to cocaine, and at that time, all I was feeling was grief and self-hatred and very alone, and cocaine helped me to feel nothing. In a few months, I went from a straight-A high school student taking college courses to barely graduating. I was still working at that truck stop, and I worked third shift on Fridays and I opened it on Sundays. But I showed up almost an hour late on a Sunday in July, and Mr. Majerus was waiting there to fire me. By this time, I was using cocaine several times a week, and my addiction was progressively getting worse. My drug dealer heard what happened and asked if he could rent the other bedroom in my apartment I could no longer afford. And the police came and searched that apartment in August, and I did receive a fine for the paraphernalia that was in my bedroom. I met Jason Dewar, who I committed the burglary with when I was looking for new roommates to try to keep the apartment. We lost the apartment, but Jason and I remained friends. The night Jeremy, Jason, and I burglarized the truck stop, it was on December 15th of 1996. We were broke and trying to get drugs. It was late on a Saturday night, and I mentioned there was a very remote truck stop I had worked at with no neighbors or cameras, and it was always shut down by 10 p.m. I had only met Jeremy once before, and he didn't trust me about the cameras or the place being empty. So he stopped and stole a ski mask at Walmart. And even though I reassured him no one would be there, I told him if he wanted a gun, he could stop and get mine. The gun that I had was a German SS issued war trophy that from my fiance that his grandfather had brought back from the war. I had never seen it fired, and I was told it wasn't operational, but it was still a deterrent that he wanted. He took the gun, and when we arrived at the gas station, we tried to pry open the back door unsuccessfully, and then he used the crowbar to break the glass front door. I went in with him, and we took about $1,000 in cash and rolled change and some cartons of cigarettes. Jason was scared and stayed in the back seat of the car. After leaving, I pulled into a rest stop a little ways away because I was shaking so much. And a while later, we continued on our way to Kewaskum, where our drug dealer lived, but I was still shaking and I was swerving, which caused me to get pulled over. The officer suspected we'd been drinking. He gave us each a breath test, but Jeremy was allowed to drive us because my license was suspended. We divided the money, purchased cocaine, cooked it, and then the three of us spent most of the next day in a bathroom at our dealer's house, smoking all of it. After that night, I moved back with my parents because I literally had nowhere left to go, and it was getting too cold to sleep in my car. My mom worked for Washington County and helped me get a job training and working as a CNA at the Samaritan Home. I saved up enough to get an apartment with another CNA and moved to West Bend in March. Detective Kaufman contacted me shortly after, and I agreed to meet with him. I answered his questions about some other crimes, but when he asked about mine, I got scared and said I should probably talk to an attorney. Shortly after the stress of that interview, I started using again, lost my job in my apartment, and got into more trouble. In October of 1998, I was sentenced to 6 years of probation with a 6-year state prison sentence, 9 months jail time with Huber, AODA, no contact with Mr. Majerus, Jason, Jeremy, or the premises of Country Corners. Jail was the best thing that happened to me. I spent time with really scary people who made lifetimes of bad choices. I distanced myself from the people I had been associating with, and I did not have access to cocaine. I worked a job that provided transportation for Huber inmates, and I washed police cars a few nights a week. The last couple months were served on GPS monitoring, living with my parents, and my uncle got me a job, and I was able to carpool with him. During my sentence and probation, there were a couple incidents. When I was on the GPS monitoring, my brother was driving me to work and he stopped for gas, and I called the jail as soon as I could to explain what happened, but it was an unscheduled stop, so I had to spend an extra weekend in jail. And there was another incident in December of 2000. My brother and I were both living with my parents, and he had overslept for work, and I tried to wake him up, but he was like half awake, and he hit me with the phone by his bed, and he wouldn't stop yelling at me, and I was scared, so I called the police, but it was considered a domestic abuse call, and someone had to go to jail, so I was on probation. So that was me, and I was furious at my brother, and I was yelling at him as I left, so I was given a fine for disorderly conduct. I've not used narcotics since the summer of 1998, and I completed my AODA in August of 2001. After my incarceration, I continued to work third shift as a machinist at Weisler Engineering for 5 years while I went to school for massage therapy and opened a massage studio. For the last 20 years, I've been married to an amazing man who's also a great father. We have 2 kids who are 12 and 9, and it's my primary goal that they know they're loved no matter what. They love themselves and they have respect for themselves and others in the law and our community. I help them to make choices by considering all of the possible outcomes and how their actions always affect others. I have lived in Port Washington for over 20 years and have found ways to be involved in my community. Whenever a background check was needed, I always explained exactly what they would find and what happened before they ran it. I've never been denied my right to vote, employment, teaching position, volunteering at my kids' school, scouts, 4-H, the food pantry, chaperoning field trips, coaching athletics, and more. The only trouble I ever had was getting my massage license, but my probation officer helped me so I could meet the required criteria. I spent the last 24 years atoning for all the hurt I caused to the communities I lived in with retail theft and driving unlicensed, to the neighbors who I moved in next to the landlords who trusted me, to the one roommate who had her act together, for the stress I caused Mr. Majuris, for the disgrace I caused my parents, for the situation I brought my older son Lucas into, for making life harder for Jason and my brother, for the potential embarrassment this may cause my children, to the officer who may have regretted not searching our car that night, to the employers and coworkers who I was unreliable for because of my drug use. I was a nuisance to Mr. Majuris, first causing him the trouble that led to my job termination and later dealing with the police in a broken glass door on a Sunday morning in the middle of December. I regret causing him this trouble. He's a busy man who ran many businesses and still prioritized the time he had with his family. Besides the theft, I robbed him of 2 peaceful Sunday mornings with them, and I am sorry. I was instructed to have no contact with him, so I have never reached out to apologize. I also never want to bother him again and felt that any attempt to apologize might add irritation rather than offer any resolve. I believe Jason Dewar was also a victim. He was even younger than me and had a worse childhood. I forgave him. I think he envied the stability my parents had that I could crawl back to when I hit rock bottom. And I think he would have been okay if he'd had someone to offer that, but he died from a heroin and cocaine overdose in 1999. The past cannot be changed, but the present and the future can. And I'm kind and helpful to strangers. I give time and money to charities. I live an intentional, purpose-filled life to help people recognize their beauty. I chose a career that allows me to physically and mentally help people feel better every day. And I coach a youth sport that helps kids be brave and confident so that they can overcome mental and physical challenges. I think you want to hear about why I want a pardon. One reason I'm asking for it is because my children and I love the outdoors and hiking and biking, and I would like to plan trips with them, but my husband doesn't want me to take them unless I can carry a firearm to protect us from the potential of aggressive wildlife and remote wilderness. I have no desire to hunt or even have a gun for personal protection in my home, but I agree with my husband about being alone in the wilderness with my kids being a bit too vulnerable. Another reason is there are roles in my community I have been invited into that I've turned down because I didn't know if it would be considered a public office, which I know I cannot hold. And finally, when I have to answer someone's question about my past, saying that I'm a pardoned felon instead of a convicted one tells them that I have been judged again as the person standing before you today, and I have been found to be a worthy member of society, to be remorseful and rehabilitated. I'm truly grateful to be here. Thank you for your time, and I'm sorry if that was really long.
That was not. That was exactly right. Perfect amount of time. Any questions or comments from the board? No. What is Miss Harris is your married name, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So no questions. Like I said before, that is not a bad thing. Your application was very, very thorough. You had a lot of really wonderful letters of recommendation as well. It just means that we had all of our questions answered from your presentation and your application.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. And thank you for taking the time to relay that all today. I know that was a lot of stuff to have to say in a public place, and we appreciate you taking the time to share your story.
Thank you for listening.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith. Hi there. Oh, you're on mute, Mr. Smith. You can click the microphone. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, could you actually remain? I forgot, we had to circle back to Mr. Keller. If we got Mr. Keller, he got kicked off and back on. And Mr. Smith, while we talk to Mr. Keller, you can try to figure out where the microphone button is. Mr. Keller, are you there? Mr. Keller?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Great.
Glad we
Good
got that
afternoon.
figured out. Were you here earlier at the start of the call to hear the introductory remarks?
Yeah, I've been here all along.
Okay, great. Go ahead and get started.
So my name is Mark Keller. I live in Mercer, Wisconsin. Moved up here 7 years ago with my girlfriend, Crystal, and we're living the life we planned to live 14 years ago when we met, and things are going well. 2006, I was convicted of a Class I felony for fleeing and eluding an officer. I did 6 months in Waukesha County Jail. I did 3 years of probation. I want to throw out there, this is all coming off my head too. There's not much involved with this, and I just want to, you guys wanted something short, and that's what I'm going to, short and sweet is what I'm going to give to you. I wasn't cut out for the system in jail, and I wasn't really prepared for what I was thrown into, and it woke me up in a hurry. Once I completed my process with probation and everything else, I looked at everything I did slightly differently, and it's worked out so far. I've lost out on a number of opportunities in the past, and I would really like the opportunity to not miss out on anymore because of this label that I've acquired. That's pretty much all I really got to say about, my conviction. I feel I deserve a chance, and I hope you guys feel the same way.
I noticed that you had a lot of different arrests and tickets, related to your license status. And those sort of kept going for a while, even after this offense and even after you were discharged from probation for this offense. Can you speak to that? And what is the current status of your license now?
My driver's license?
Yeah, you had in 2011, you were still getting picked up for operating a vehicle after suspension. And they're traffic offenses, but they weren't included on your application. So just wondering if you got
right. There's nothing as of recent. Since I've lived in the North Woods up here, I haven't gotten anything. I don't think. Maybe I got a. What's that?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm sorry. The one thing that stands out to me is I got a warning for an exhaust pipe here in town. So it's been a while since I've gotten in any trouble.
Your license is valid now?
Yeah, my license is valid. I drive for work. It's been valid for an estimate of at least 10 years,
Okay. Cindy or Nadia, do you have any questions? Cindy?
Good afternoon, Mr. Keller. It looks like your probation was extended in 2009. Why was that?
Because I couldn't come up with I think it was $1,700 to close out of it. I ended up getting a loan from a family. What's that?
No, go ahead.
And I got a loan from my grandmother at the time, and it was shortly after that it was taken care of.
So were those like court costs and other things that remained unpaid?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
It looks like you also had near the tail end of your probation period, an arrest and the conviction for resisting or an obstruction. Did that have anything to do? Am I reading that correct? Can you tell me what that was about?
I'm guessing that would have been linked to this case.
Okay. You don't remember any other offenses?
No, I don't. No.
Sorry, I'm sort of lost on my tabs here. Bear with me. Any other questions from the board? Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Keller. Sorry for the tech problems. I'm glad we were able to figure that out.
Apologize for the reception.
No, no problem. Thank you.
Have a good one. Thanks. Bye.
All right, Mr. Smith, it looks like you got your mute button figured out.
I believe I do.
Yes, great. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, members of the Pardon Advisory Committee. I'm 68 years old, have a 10th grade education, never had a drug or alcohol issues, and currently residing in Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. I'm requesting a pardon for 4 convictions, all related to the same incident, which was in 1989 for a hazardous waste violation. On July 1st of 91, which is 31 years ago, I was sentenced to prison, but the judge stayed the sentence, and it was an 18-month probation and $20,000 fine. The probation was completed, the fine was paid in full. Since the conviction, I've had no contact with law enforcement other than speeding tickets. Zero contact with any law enforcement for anything. Since completion of the sentence, I established a commercial construction company. Part of the business is a subcontract to a national wastewater treatment contractor. I've been with them for 30 years, building wastewater treatment plants and tunneling projects and so forth. Some of the contracts require background checks to get on facilities, which I may not bid on because of the felony conviction. I also put together a commercial real estate portfolio, building, managing these properties on my own. My reasons for seeking his pardon: I've owned 2 restaurants with liquor license for the past 12 years and cannot get a liquor license, so I have a second party operating them, which really takes control out of any of the daily operation of it. I'm always subject to what the people with the license want to do. With the pardon, I could obtain the liquor license and control the day-to-day operations. In addition, I'd be able to secure a real estate broker's license and kind of eliminate some of that middleman stuff where the big commissions go, because these are all commercial properties, and handle my own transactions. I have an intent to go with local politics here in the local area, which is Fairville and Prairie du Chien, but this is also stopping me from doing that because of the conviction. As life goes on, things change. And recently I got married after a 7-year relationship. My wife has 4 children, ages 10 to 18. I've become a role model to these children, and someday my past mistake is going to surface, and I would like to tell these children with a clean conscience that I've been exonerated from my mistakes for the reasons I stated. So I'm seeking your consideration for this pardon. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Did you receive a copy of the Department of Justice letter, their perspective on your application?
No.
Okay. So the Department of Justice did provide some input on your application. I feel like you're at somewhat of a disadvantage, though, having not received a copy of it. We are happy to share it. They had indicated that they did share. Go ahead, Cindy.
You supplied a rebuttal to it, Mr. Smith.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Department of Justice, yes, I did get a letter from them indicating that I own a property now that has environmental product. Yes, I do.
Okay. just wanted to confirm that you had that.
Yes.
Do you have any comment on that, Mr. Smith, and what that, and I want to start by saying, to the extent that there are any allegations or concerns about ongoing violations, there's nothing pending now. I just want you to be aware of the sort of unique situation we're in insofar as I don't want there to be you to admit to anything unrepresented for something that could form the basis of any other violations.
I bought the property from an estate. It was an operating legal scrapyard for the early 1900s, because I have a picture of the owners with a buggy and horses when they were hauling scrap in there. So I bought it about 20 years ago and rehabbed it and got a tenant in there. And the balance of the material is still on the site. And I spent $150,000 with an environmental consulting firm to try to liquidate these spoils that are there. And I worked with the DNR through this whole process. And now through the last set of testing, well, it's been obvious because we did a PECFO. We got PECFO money for the tanks that were there. And there's some PCBs on the site which have to go to Detroit, of which I'm willing to send them there. We just can't come up with a final plan for the EPA because they're handling it now. So, and they consented that all of that material, whatever is there, was there long before I purchased the property. And unbeknownst to me, that the environmental problem was there because we went and got the PECFA money for the tanks. And during the course of the testing for the tanks, this PCB thing came up. So they required extensive testing, wells, soil borings, on and on and on. So all the data is in place, and we're currently working with the EPA through several consultants to try to remediate this problem. But none of it was my imported. It was all there from the course of a legal business for 80 years, permitted by the city of Milwaukee.
Got it.
I was the last guy standing when the lights went out, is what it comes down to.
So as far as you know, you're in, I know things are still ongoing, but you feel
Absolutely.
like cooperating with the environmental regulation officials, EPA.
For 18 years, we've been working with them on rectifying this problem.
Any questions from other board members?
Hi, Mr. Smith. I want to go back to the crime for which you're requesting a pardon and the
Yes.
specifics of that crime. So when I read your statement in your application, you make it sound like you did exactly what you were hired to do. Is that correct, or am I misreading that? Did you do something wrong and you know you did something wrong?
Yes.
Okay, and what did you do wrong?
I took something that turned out to be not a hazardous waste and took it to an unlicensed facility and left it.
Okay, and that was not part of the deal of what you were hired to do?
Well, the gentleman was liquidating his business and he asked me, can you get rid of this stuff here? And there were numerous barrels that turned out to be 80+% water. And there's no threshold on what is hazardous, what is not. So all these barrels were there, and after extensive testing by the DNR, it turned out to be almost all water. But at any rate, there were violations there, and I was not a licensed transporter, so I believe that was one of the convictions.
Okay, so you did some things wrong, knowingly did them wrong and collected
Yes.
money? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
They noticed you didn't provide any letters of recommendation. They're recommended, they're not required. Why didn't you provide any letters of support from anybody in your life? And if you had, what do you think they'd say about you?
Who would I get letters of support from? It was a state's attorney general, and the attorney I hired to seek this information out said they couldn't get any acknowledgement, and Judge Honorable Jeffrey Wagner was the judge, and he didn't respond, I believe.
Sure. Do you have friends and family in your life or acquaintances, people who you might say fun things about you? How do you think the people that you see daily think about you and think of you?
Well, there's not many left, and I kind of keep that. It's been so long ago. Any new acquaintances aren't aware of it, and I don't advertise that I was a violator.
Sure.
So as far as getting anybody, do I have acquaintances? Yes, a lot of them. Bankers, real estate people, the national contractor, they're $1 billion a year company. I don't put out there that I was a DNR violator. So that's one of the reasons why I declined to bid on some of these wastewater treatment plants, because I know they're going to do a background check, and I don't need that exposure to those people that I've been working with for 30 years.
Sure.
So I tend to not advertise the violations that I did. And I did a question about it.
Nadia, did you have questions? Thank you, sir. Do you have anything else to add before we move to the next person on the agenda?
Just that in the trailer that I put these containers in, it was completely lined with plastic, and there wasn't an intent to spill it there. I put it on railroad property thinking that the railroad would take care of it, and they didn't. And it turns out that the railroad property was far more contaminated than the stuff that was in these barrels. And I did pay whatever the fines were to dispose of it and test it. And it's been haunting me for 31 years.
Thank you. Yes, we do have verification that you took care of all the restitution in that matter.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay. With that, we'll move to the next applicant. You have a really nice weekend, Mr. Smith.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Leonard Harmon?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, my name is Leonard Harmon, and I'm 49 years old. And my offense happened 22 years ago. My offense was I was cashing checks off in closed accounts. And I'm a husband for 19 years, a father, grandfather, a deacon at my church, the Life Center, where my pastor is Bishop Makai Young. I'm a mentor. I volunteer at the pantry, The Gathering in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I went back to school, got my my high school equivalency, because I knew I made a mistake. I messed my name up. And I knew I was going to have a hard time finding a job. And I wanted to at least have a high school equivalency to find a decent job after being a felon. So my first job was the YMCA as a building supervisor. I worked there for many years, and I knew whatever job that would hire me, I had to make a good impression on them. And if I was to leave that company, I did the proper procedures just in case if I had to come back, I can go back there and work again. So I left the right way. So when I left there, I went to I had to get my CDLs. I got my CDLs, and I drove school bus for 4 years. From there, I went to being a garbage man. I worked for Viola. That was in Muskego. Currently, the job I'm working right now, I was denied 3 times. And I got the job. I work for MCTS, Milwaukee County Transit. I'm a city bus driver. I've been there now going over 6 years. After my 3rd year there, I've made a platform instructor. I'm an instructor. I train new people that come into the company. I train them to learn how to drive the bus. I train them to get their CDLs so that they can drive a city bus. So I do a lot at my job. At first, I was a traveling musician, but I needed a job. I had got married. I've been married 19 years now, so I needed consistent money. I needed insurance for my family, and I'm doing that. And so if I was to get pardoned, it would give me a better chance of advancing with the company that I'm in. Growing up, I didn't value the importance of my name. When I go to apply for career advancement in a company, I don't want this stumbling block to be over me. I just want to get my name back and keep doing the good things that I'm doing in my life.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. And just to clarify, this wasn't clear in your application. Where are you currently working?
I work for Milwaukee County Transit, City Bus.
Got it.
Milwaukee County Transit.
And you've been there since 2016?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Does the rest of the board have any questions? No questions for you.
Oh, again, thank you guys so much, so much. I've learned a lot in 22 years.
That's good.
So,
And thank you you had a very thorough application. So thank you very much. We hope you have a good Memorial Day weekend.
God bless you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Mr. Harmon.
Bye-bye.
Last applicant of the day is Mr. Fox.
Hi, my name is Matthew Fox, and I want to touch on a few things I believe I left out of the application. I also did email over a letter of recommendation that I realized was missing. So I know I didn't mention much about my father. He was hooked on, which he still is, hooked on crack cocaine. I learned about that around the age of 12. So he wasn't much involved growing up with that drug addiction, and coping on top of the abuse, the physical, domestic violence abuse that I suffered from. So I was driving, and I wasn't supposed to. I didn't have a license. It's my first time ever being pulled over. Was afraid, and I chose to run. Biggest mistake I made. I had no reason to flee other than being afraid. There was a passenger in the car with me. She actually did calm me down, told me to stop, and told me that everything will be okay or whatnot. So I did pull over and park. There is one thing that I did read in the criminal complaint where the officer felt like I wanted to ram his vehicle. I did want to touch on that. I had no intentions on ramming his vehicle. I simply was trying to reverse, and I didn't realize how close he was. But we never made contact with the vehicle at all. But since my conviction, I paid all my restitution, my court causes. It's been hard for me to get jobs. I got denied many jobs. I applied to be a fireman at the age of 18 and found out I couldn't because of the criminal conviction. So it hindered me in that aspect. I had a handful of tickets. I'm a single father. I've been raising my kids since birth. The mother has more kids, but not with me. I only have 2 kids. So the financials wasn't quite there for me to obtain my license. So I didn't get them till I think I was 26. I do have a current license now. So I had a handful of tickets. It's just the struggles of not being able to get a good job and the depression that comes along with having the conviction and not having the hope and the willingness to care for myself and do better for myself. I always wanted to help others. But I'm currently in school for criminal justice. I would like to be a fireman. I know it's very hard to do. Granted that it's not a lot of openings. So that's why I chose to still go to school for criminal justice, because it's a lot easier to get in that career. And I will need a pardon for either one of those. I did become a foster parent. I didn't accept any children yet because I did sign up for school. I didn't have the time for it. I do a lot of volunteering with the Red Cross. We go out to house fires and whatnot. And we recently, last weekend, we did our smoke alarm installs. So we went out and did that. I also did the Police Academy, Citizen One, Academy 1 and 2. They also reached out to me to sit on their critical incident review board, which should be starting up next month. We'll be meeting every month, once a month. to talk about critical incidents that's happening in Milwaukee. What else did I need to touch on? And the person, the pastor that was with me, I still talk to her. That's actually one of my friends' kid's mother. This event hasn't left any, significant trauma or regrets yet. I've expressed to her my greatest remorse and apologies. I mean, we still talk to this day, not every day, but really don't know if I left anything out. I'm currently still a technician turning wrenches. I've been turning wrenches for a long time. I built 2 houses to the ground up through school and did a lot of self-employment work for us. I couldn't get a decent job. So I did a lot of self-employment work on houses and cars. And I think that's pretty much it. And like I said, those handful of tickets, I paid all of my, I went down to the courthouse and paid all of my unpaid tickets in municipal and in circuit court. I haven't had any criminal convictions since. I had one out in Missouri for when I was out there with my cousin visiting her. I was driving and got stopped and it was an unclassified misdemeanor charge, just a fine, before I had got my license in order. I've since kept my license in order and they're not suspended. I don't have any other violations. And I did have one incident that I did mention on my application about when I put a house in my name for a friend. And I learned my lesson from that. I don't put anything else in my name. It was, just simply trying to help out a friend. He had the house in the business name. And he said, since the back taxes was hindering him from getting a job from the city, I was currently self-employed. So I wanted to help him out. It was only supposed to be for a few months, and then one thing led to another. I was acquitted of all charges on there, but pretty much like everybody named that per se in the hat from that incident, I was the only one for prior. So I felt like that's why they chose to charge me, because nobody else, out of everybody else's names that they had involved in that, nobody else had a prior, even though my prior was for eluding the officer. I know I made a great mistake. I should never ran. I had no reason to run. I was just afraid.
And Mr. Fox, I wanted to interrupt there and make sure the board has a chance to ask questions, and also to tell you we did get that letter. It was a really great letter from Bill Satterley of the Red Cross,
yes,
as well as the hours that you've put in with that organization. That has been substantial. So want you to rest assured we did get that.
Okay.
And I didn't mean to cut you off. I know the board probably has some questions. Did you have anything else you wanted to add before we ask those?
No.
Cindy or Nadia? Nadia?
Mr. Fox, looking back, I think you touched on this a little bit, but what would you tell your 17-year-old self? I think in retrospect, being where you've been now, right? Like the difficulties that you've experienced in that particular moment, whether, right, like it's just a different way of thinking, or just things that you've learned over all these years.
I would tell myself to, stay out of trouble. These things have a long lasting effect. At that time, I had no idea that my mistakes would follow me forever, or I really would have made better decisions. Educate myself. Broke that barrier of that lack of communication between citizens and law enforcement. I had no reason to be afraid other than the lies that was told throughout the community of us growing up, saying that, there are people, police officers are bad. And in actuality, they're not all bad. You got one bad apple that doesn't define the whole entire task force, the whole law enforcement as a whole. So just better education and actually knowing that these things will have lifelong lasting effects. And sooner or later, you're going to grow up and you're going to change your mind about how you want to conduct yourself. And it might be too late by then.
Thank you. Can I say one thing? I wanted to ask you that question because, right, you said firefighter, right, or criminal justice working with youth. And obviously do whatever you love, but just so you know, like that response is something that I think a lot of young people in our communities could really benefit from, and like your perspective. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And, you know, I just have to make a pitch, Mr. Fox, if you get this pardon and as you pursue your criminal justice degree, the Department of Corrections is a great place to work as either a probation and parole agent or a correctional officer. I mean, I could see you fitting a lot of different roles in a very positive way.
Yes, and that's my intent. And also joining the National Guard, they only go on the weekends. They told me, I'm actually in the process of doing it. They told me if I get the pardon, it's gonna make it easier because I would need a waiver. But I mean, it's a lot of things. I actually tried to join the military at 18, but I had the unpaid tickets and I was a single father. Plus I would needed a waiver. So it's like the odds were stacked against me. I mean, I made a great mistake and I've been remorseful ever since. And I just try my best to give back to my community. I do a lot of volunteering. I just try my best to make up for my mistakes.
Well, we see you. You know, and this is how it's supposed to work, right? You're 17 years old, you get in trouble and you don't get in trouble again. So good for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. We appreciate you coming by and telling us your story.
All right, you guys have a wonderful Memorial weekend.
Thank you, you too. All right, that concludes the afternoon session. At this time, I'm looking for someone to make a motion, or I'll make a motion to move into closed session pursuant to section 1985 1A sub D and sub F for purposes of deliberating the cases which are before the board today. Do you have a motion or a second?
Second.
Great. With that, we'll transition to closed session. That concludes our